Hello, everyone. Welcome to, the stream, the Arsenal Therapy stream. I don't know what else to call it, but a lot of people have been messaging me on Instagram and on TikTok and on YouTube to do one of these. So I said, well, give the people what they want. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. And most importantly, get into the chat and let me know what you guys are thinking and feeling ahead of the North London Derby and in the post-apocalyptic nightmare that is Arsenal drawing to Wolves a couple days ago. Listen, I am not, feeling it's weird because the last 2 seasons felt more like I was mad about things. This season, I do feel a little bit of apathy, and I hate feeling that way because once I feel apathy, it's just less it just feels like I'm falling out of love with whatever we're doing, and that doesn't mean I'm not an Arsenal fan, like, I will always be an Arsenal fan, like, let's be real. I just think that, this project has been so cool to see, and we've gotten so close to where we want to be, but I just don't know if I can go again if they don't win this time. Like, I just don't know what you do. So some of the things that I've just kind of been thinking about over the last couple of days is just, why is it such that we are still 5 points ahead, and it feels as though nobody believes that we can still do it because, we are still ahead. We're in a good position. If you look at the way, like every other league, the Bundesliga, Serie A, um, uh, the Spain, every other title race is really close, but it feels as though if this one gets close, it's the end of the road for Arsenal. And that's distressing. So why is that? And I think as much as there's some people that are, this is the reason why Arsenal don't, it really is not the fans. I really just think that this team and this manager have gone through, they've gone through a lot, but they seem to not be able to dig out the results that they need under pressure. And then Arteta starts asking for the fans to do this and do that. But from my perspective, it's like, yeah, well, the fans gave you the trust in the first 2 seasons and you guys didn't win. So maybe you guys need to build the trust back. I do think when you lose games like, Southampton at home or draw 3-3 against Southampton at home, when you draw to Wolves 2-2, things like that, when you lose to Aston Villa, you know, when in the middle of the title race, you break trust every single time. So I don't know where they kind of get off always asking the fans to do something. Arteta had a press conference today, and only for the purposes of this live stream, I looked up any quotes from it because I do not listen to that man because he's just like the king of gaslighting. But he was asking the fans to continue to love them or love him when they're not doing well. You love us when we're doing well, but then when we're not doing well, you don't. So love us. And I'm just like, bro, read the fucking room. It's not that the fans don't support, it's that they don't trust you. And every single time we get into a good position, the trust is broken and you just expect people to trust. There's a difference between being disappointed and lacking trust and maybe not believing that we're going to get it over the line and support. And this is one of the most supportive and patient fan bases that you can find. If we were not, you would not be in the job. So to ask for anything at this stage just feels like shifting responsibility. It's all up to the players and the manager to get it over the line at this point. It's not the Arsenal fans' fault that, you guys can't go to the worst team in Premier League history and not beat them. And what was interesting is that the whole kind of, feeling from, because I watched James, I watched the Loose Cannons podcast, and I watched Arsenal Vision as well. And I think every single one of those platforms mentioned that the Wolves' performance was unprofessional. And I think that's probably the best and only way to describe a performance that was just well below the level. I don't know if some of them just thought it's Wolves, we're just going to beat them, or I'm looking towards Sunday, so we can just score this one goal and just manage the game. But it was completely unprofessional and very, like, beyond disappointing. It just the amount of times that they gave that ball away, some of the stats that have come out post that game were so unbelievable that I cannot even begin to describe to you how hearing Declan Rice saying that they had a meeting and they know that they can't lose to Spurs and Arteta asking for love, it just felt like a slap in the face. That I don't want to hear about your meetings and needing love right now. All I want to hear is we're going to win the title. We know that this is unacceptable. That was an unacceptable performance, and we need to beat Spurs. That's it. I don't want to hear about love us. Fuck that. Especially the away fans. One thing I'll always give them credit for is you can always hear them through the TV screen. So you have undying support from so many people. So, like, let's get serious for 5 seconds. Let's just get serious for 5 seconds. But, today there are quotes coming out from Arteta that are not necessarily that surprising because he's a gaslighter, but we're kind of laughable. And then you have Declan Rice's interview coming out saying that, we're going to fight to the end and a title's never going to be given to you. And this is not to shade him either, because, I love Declan Rice to death, but, they just kind of always say the same things over and over again. It's empty words. It's not impressive for me to hear somebody say, Saka told me that we cannot lose to Spurs. Well, actually, no, you actually, it's not that you cannot lose to Spurs. You actually need to win. Why are you guys talking about we cannot lose? You actually need to beat Spurs. It's actually not okay in any circumstance for Arsenal to not beat Spurs. It's not about not losing, you know? So he's talking about not losing. We know we have to do this. It's not going to be handed to us. Well, to be honest, the title was basically handed to you guys at a certain point. City were terrible for about a 3-game period, and you decided to be bad for a 4 or 5-game period. So you guys have made it much more difficult on yourselves. It's not this difficult race because Man City are so good. It's because you guys have been poor. We are only 4 points better off now than we were at this point last season. So essentially the only difference between this season and last season is that Liverpool are not running away with it. You guys have caused your own problems, and you need to get yourselves out of it. Leave us out of it. Leave the fans out of it. It needs to just be you guys, period. You need to go to, Tottenham Stadium and win. A draw is not good enough. You need to win. You guys talking about meetings and shit. You guys had a beautiful meeting after the United game, and you guys have continued to drop points. I'm not trying to hear about no meetings. I'm not trying to hear about you need the fans. I'm not trying to hear none of that. None of that. Just beat Spurs and start to build some momentum, because if you even draw, you fucked it, because it's already feeling like it's done. Like, that's just the reality. It's already feeling like it's done. But if you guys do not beat Spurs, a draw is just as bad as a loss. Do the math. Do the math. So seeing the quotes this morning were unsurprising, but also infuriating. And I just feel like once Arteta is asking for the fans to get behind them when we're playing Sunderland at home, he knows that they're not up for it. And instead of trying to make changes and, not ice people out for weeks and overplay his best players and play some of the most turgid and disgusting football I've ever seen, he's placing the onus on the fans. And it's just like, you can miss me with that. Like, the fans are not the problem at this stage. Like, let's be serious. Let's get into some of your comments. Mata says, it's always hard realizing we are in an abusive relationship with Arsenal. I mean, it is one of the most abusive relationships ever, is the relationship between a person and their football team, especially when their football club team is not good enough, or not winning trophies, and they're meant to be. So it's tough, but it's the bed that we chose to lie in. So, at this stage, I'm like, I'm in it, but I cannot help but feel like I don't have another one in me. Like, I can't go again. So next season, if it's Arteta again and this core group again, for me, it's gonna be, let me check the scores, and it's the investment has to be less, because it's like, how many times can you slap me across the face and I'm just gonna sit there and be like, yeah, slap me again? Like, no, come on. I'm already there, Jess. Since last season, I've barely watched because I'm exhausted, particularly with the manager. It's so disappointing. I've lost confidence in the team due to repeated poor performances. Arteta is our Brendan Rodgers. We need to find our Klopp. The mentality in this team is off, and the only way I can see that changing is a new voice. Marlon says, Jess, doing Arsenal therapy like Curtis Shaw. We need all the therapy we can get. The people asked, I deliver. Burmese says, the unforced errors are concerning. It has to be nerves. I mean, listen, during the 3-game period where we drew to Nottingham Forest, we drew to Liverpool, and we lost to United, I did say that we were crumbling. And I said that we can still win the league if we change if we change, we can. But you could already see that the nerves were there, and you can't be, dropping points due to nerves in January and February. I could get it if we were like with 3 games to go and you got really nervous, or you were nervous at the Etihad. I understand that, but nervous against Nottingham Forest, that hadn't won a game in like 11 games. That was like their best performance end game in like 11 games. And they've sacked they had 4 different managers this season. They have been what one would consider constant crisis since the beginning of the season, but we could not go there and win because City dropped points before we played, and it was an opportunity for us to get ahead. We played against a Liverpool team that had been in terrible form without Ekitike and Salah, and they were dominant in the second half and probably should have and could have won that game, especially if they had their better players available to them. The United one, I could stomach that. I could stomach the United loss if we had beaten Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. I get it. United on a new manager bounce, you fuck up. Okay. But then you turn around and do Wolves and Brentford, like, nah, bro. You can miss me with that. Like, the errors are crazy. It's definitely nerves. And I remember feeling very uninspired by the Bournemouth game, because even though it was 3-2 and we won, Gabriel giving the ball away and basically chucking the ball into the back of our own net in the first couple minutes of that game told me everything I needed to know about this team. You should not be nervous against Bournemouth. And it's creeped in. The Bournemouth game, Gabriel chucking the ball in the back of our own net, Zubamendi against United chucking the ball into our own net, Raya versus Brentford, basically trying to chuck the ball into the back of our own net. and then Gabrielle and Raya against Sunderland and Gabrielle and Raya against Wolves. It's crazy, so it's dark, and they could pull themselves out of it, but you can't blame the fans for not believing in you. You need to show us that we should be believing in you. These athletes know how serious it is. We keep adding fire, but I'm with you. They need to be held accountable. Someone getting fired at the end. Honestly, this is the end. Win or go. No more excuses, explanations, qualifiers, or players. If we don't win the league, Champions League, or even a cup, heads have to roll. Speaking of heads, James Ellis, the technical director, he was appointed not too long ago, and he's gone already. That came out today that he's left. He was working with Berta, was he not? I saw something from Hand of Arsenal saying that. So like I would expect like a couple of people to go. I know they won't because Arsenal are soft, but if you've had a 6-7 year project and you haven't won anything but a FA Cup with a different team, people need to go. Arsenal technical director James Ellis has now left Arsenal Football Club with immediate effect. James Ellis was promoted to technical director last summer to support Andrea Berta with recruitment, but my understanding is that he has now left the club. I'll be real, I don't know or care. With Berta, like, here's my thing, is that he had identified somebody, some Italian guy that was responsible for finding, like, I think it was like Cavaschelli at one point. He had a hand in like Yildiz too, or like something like that. He had found quite a few like young, good players for, I think it was actually Juventus, right? And they didn't go with him. And then they promoted somebody from within. And I'm like, stop the fucking promoting from within bullshit and get the best in the business. If Berta basically was like, listen, I don't like this guy, get him out of here, good. Because I think, Berta should also, start looking for managers too. I think there's just no way that you can have this 6-7 year project and not win anything and stay. And I think we've been incredibly patient, and that doesn't mean that there hasn't been good work done. There's always been the element, I know somebody said this earlier, that maybe Arteta is the guy before the guy, and we need to find the person that's going to, because we don't want everything to go to waste. I think that often when we're going through a difficult time, it's easy to want to just scrap it all and everything is bad, but genuinely with a couple of world-class elite attackers and some tweaks in our system and a different ethos and a better manager, this team could win stuff. But I believe if Arteta got new players, he still could not win. Genuinely. Like, I think the players with a new manager are closer to winning something than Arteta with new players, because he's the common denominator for me. He encourages nervousness. He encourages the players to not, play with joy and freedom. He encourages this stiff and turgid way of playing football. And James said something so wise on the Loose Cannons podcast. He said, the football does not inspire the fans, but it also encourages bad teams to basically have a go at us. And we play on the margins so much, and it's like you almost feel like you're owed a title for having to suffer through this for the last 2 seasons. And if we don't get it, it's going to feel like a slap in the face. And it's not that he has to play Arsene Wenger tiki-taka, but when you look at the best teams in the world that have won things in the last couple of years, you think about Barcelona, you think about Bayern, you think about PSG, and how they can win things but also play good football. Why does it have to be mutually exclusive for us? Why do we have to play some of the worst on the margins football and still not win stuff? So at the end of the day, it's like I feel like we all feel like, well, we're kind of owed this title now because we've had to like kind of suffer through this shit. And if we don't get it, it's going to feel horrendous. Nobody's enjoying this. No one's enjoying this. So yeah, if he doesn't win anything, I'd much rather keep this core group. I would love to see what this group looks like with a different manager. I don't think that they're this bad. Like, I really don't. The insider promotion is just so hilarious because that's what a lot of inefficient big companies do in all industries. It's just like, of course, we do it as well. Let's see. If they win the next 6 in a row, then maybe I'll start to believe again. Exactly. Big up Jess, smash the likes, people, Arteta out. Fans have made ridiculous excuses and normalized failure for this team. Reminds me of Liverpool under Brendan Rodgers when they got nervous and lost the league right at the end. They didn't look like they want to be there at all versus Wolves. I would like to see Arsenal when I see a complete team. This team doesn't feel complete, like the attack. It's just not elite. Gyökeres lifting the prem. Nah, man. I mean, but like, listen, I get it. I understand, but like, let's um I feel like you have to compartmentalize it because I think, does this team need to be complete to beat this City team to a title? No. Like, this is like the lowest points tally that a leading team has had since Leicester. So this team doesn't actually have to have any more talent in it. Just needed to be able to beat a really bad Nottingham Forest and a really bad Wolves. You know, if you do that, you have 4 more points. You're 9 points clear at this point with, you don't have the game in hand, but even if they win one, you're 6 ahead. So that's why I kind of think like this whole idea that it's just about we needed a better striker and we needed to do this in the window. I'm not saying you exactly are saying that, but I don't need to see Arteta get more players. That's what I'm saying. I don't need to see Arteta getting new players because new players doesn't have anything to do with us beating Wolves or Nottingham Forest. Those are 4 points. That's 9 points clear. That's even if they beat Newcastle, we're 6 points clear. Even if we lose at the Etihad, we're 3 points clear. So I'm not trying to see Arteta with any new players, bro. None. I don't want to see Arteta with any new players. I think if you can't win it with this group and the way that this league is gone, when it's kind of like everybody's kind of dropping points, then he's kind of got to go. Um, let's see. Let's see. You can't blame the fans for not believing in you, but you were telling doubtful Arsenal fans that we were reactionary and doom and gloom when we called it out earlier in the season. I don't know who you're talking about, but that definitely was not me. I was one of the early people saying that I didn't think that we would win the league. So, in fact, I was being called negative at the beginning of the season. So, I don't know. I feel like sometimes you guys get me mixed up with other people because ain't no way. Now, once it became clear that we were like top of the league and we had this little gap, I was like, oh, this is our best opportunity to win it because, City's nowhere near it. Liverpool are flagging and we have the deepest squad and we're in a good position. But yeah, no, that couldn't be me because ultimately I'm always called negative. And at the beginning of the season, I said I thought Liverpool would win it. I also said I thought City would win it. It wasn't until like November where I was like, oh, we could probably win it. So it definitely was not me. You guys get me confused with people all the time. Like, it definitely was not me. Extremely concerning technical level drop for no reason. Hoofball is extremely odd. Yeah, I don't get the technical level, that's been a thing for a while. There was under Mikel, there was a game that we played in the yellow kits years ago against Brighton. This was before Brighton had like really got going for real. I forget who their manager was at the time. But we played like Emile Smith Rowe and Odegaard in the middle, and we couldn't pass the ball. We quite literally could not pass the ball to each other. And I don't know if it's because it was tight and Brighton were like, popping the ball around. You know how they were doing back then. Like they really had like, they were doing okay. Um, it wouldn't be the first time that we saw our technical level drop straight down the tubes with Mikel. It's weird because we've gone through different phases of teams, and I only remember one team whose technical level didn't really drop off that much, but there's examples of Arsenal not being able to pass the ball to each other under Mikel, and it all comes from pressure. But now he's stripped the team of more of their technical level, so it's even worse now. But Arsenal under Mikel have always had this, like, as soon as they get nervous, they just start booting it. and it only it shows worse now than ever because I mean the collective technical level is much lower. So I agree. But I remember games where we had better technical players where all of it just 1 or 2 games a season, like, it would just be like, "What's wrong with them?" Why can't they pass it to each other? There was a game that we played against Leeds in, the 22-23 season where we scored, and then we immediately fell off right after that, and the team quite literally could not get out of their box. So, I feel like that's like a Mikel thing, because it just has to be. We conceded in stoppage time in several games. That's not lack of talent, that's mentality. We've conceded, yeah. What there's like a list of them that I had sent diluted the other day. Um, but I remember talking about this during like the Chelsea first leg, and I was like, "It's really difficult for me to be excited about this because we should be 4-1 up, but somehow we're 3-2, and we found a way to let a bad Chelsea team without any of their good players come back several times, and we gave up a goal, like, in, like, the 80-somethingth minute." That's definitely mentality. But what happens is like, and I agree with according to Kesh, it's kind of both because what you see is we're not the worst at a nil-nil. We're only bad at the nil-nil in the second half. At the beginning of a game at a nil-nil, we're okay. Once we get the goal, especially this season and last season, 1-0, we're up. They are in a constant battle of go for another or defend the 1-0 because I don't think that as a collective, one, they know how to go and score a goal, but they also don't believe they can score a goal because they know the attackers are not that clinical. So they're in this constant like, should we just pass it around? Like, if we give up the ball, we're going to concede. They're traumatized. So, and that does come from not having enough talent at the top end of the pitch because we don't even have enough belief with 7 minutes of stoppage time. I forget what game that was we conceded, and there was like 7 minutes of stoppage time. Those boys just crumbled to the ground. It was like, you have 7 minutes to go score a goal, by the way. But they know they're not going to score. And that comes from knowledge of knowing that your attackers are not good enough. And also, how are we going to score? I think it was Elliot on the Arsenal Vision podcast who said, um, basically, when we score a goal, it feels like a huge thing, like a huge mountain that we climbed because it's not easy for us to score. So there's so many different layers to it, but of course we have a mentality issue, but we also lack talent in especially up front. And when we're not playing well, that lack of talent really shows. Because even when we were really bad, um, Aubameyang would still score goals for us in the FA Cup. So when you just have that talent, sometimes it can bail you out when you're not playing that well, but we don't have anybody that can bail us out because the attackers they're so painfully average. They are painfully average. It's gotten worse and worse every single season. The collective talent up front. We've relied way too much on Saka. He's basically killed Saka. I don't know what his career looks like beyond this. Saka's dead, essentially. He can't run. He doesn't look anything like the player that he was before. He has no burst. Like, it's crazy. So we had like Saka, basically like a world-class attacker, Odegaard with 15 goals, and in one season and 15 assists, killed him. And then people want me to like be excited about Gyökeres and Martinelli. Now, Martinelli is an interesting one as well because I feel like if we had continued to play to his strengths, maybe he wouldn't have fallen off so far. But at this stage, it's like, damn, what happened to him? So it's a weird one. It's a weird one, especially with Martinelli, because I do believe that if he goes and plays for somebody else and they play to his strengths, he'll be a good goal scorer. But the problem with him is he's very limited. And when you don't play to his strengths, the limits are so obvious, so it's wild. I agree with Mata. It's like Martinelli is so hard to watch, but Arteta hasn't helped him. And he hasn't helped very many of our attackers, if we're being honest, So I think if you're not like an all-arounder like Saka and Rice, you can really suffer with Mikel because he doesn't know how to platform anyone, really. He's even misprofiling his own defenders now. What is Timber best at? Stopping transitions and defending. So why don't you just have him doing that and giving the ball to the better players? Why do you have him all up in the attack like that? It make no fucking sense, man. It doesn't make any sense. Then I have people talking about, well, Timber's just not very good. I'm like, I hate how he plays players into the ground and plays them and doesn't platform them for so long that they're out of form and they lose confidence. And then people start rewriting history on really good players. And I feel like that's happened to quite a few of our players, if I'm honest. Like, he's killing them, yo. All the attackers fell off under Arteta. Also, Martinelli is a striker and not really a winger. What do you think about Martinelli up top as our 9? I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really think about it because I don't think Arteta will ever lean into it. I think once Arteta decides you play only a certain position, you never play another position again. He's very limited in the way that he thinks about people. It's like basically all of our midfielders had to be on their deathbed for him to play Zinchenko in midfield, last season. I think almost everybody had to be on their deathbed for him to even to consider to play MLS in midfield. It was like everybody was like on their deathbed and he wouldn't play him there. When's the last time he's played Eze on the left? Do you think it's just a coincidence that Eze's only playing midfield now and he won't play him at left wing because he doesn't want to play him there anymore? Because he got caught out that one time against Aston Villa. And so now he's like, if you don't play in the 10 and I'm going to play anybody and everybody's mom above you in that position, then you don't play. So, Martinelli is never going to play 9 under Mikel Arteta. Would he be better there? Potentially, but it would have to be a completely different coach. It's just, he doesn't know how to play with a 9. He doesn't know how to play with a 9, So it's weird. Insomniac says, definitely the defense doesn't trust the attack. Saliba and Gabriel sometimes coming up front to pass the ball and giving assists says it. Let's talk about that shit because that is something that it has like creeped in so badly that, of course, because we don't score a lot of goals, naturally, like in open play at times, that we'll just take whatever we can get. But the fact that so many people have mentioned the fact that it was like almost annoyed them that it was Gabriel putting that ball in behind for Hincapie and how we would like never see any of our attackers in that position like at all is so funny. Like, what is that? Why is Timber so far up? Why is Hincapie in a position that we'd never see Martinelli in? What is that shit? But we had the balance was fine for like the first 2 seasons, 22-23 and 23-24, when we were kind of utilizing fullbacks to invert and create overloads. But we've almost gone again, like that's like a plus for the way that you play. I feel the same way about our throw-ins and set pieces, right? When you have those things, those are in addition to a really good attack that functions at a high level, so you're just adding extra to make the margins bigger for you. I feel like Arteta doing all this inverting and all that without having like everybody being able to play in their natural positions and for us to be successful is why we're, in 22-23 and 23-24, everybody in their natural positions still contributed to a good level. Like it would not be surprising to you if Odegaard passed the ball to Martinelli and Martinelli scored. It would not be unlikely to see, Saka get on the ball and give the ball to Martinelli and Martinelli score. Like those are like normal things that you saw. So if you saw Zinchenko pop up on the right side every once in a while and thread a ball through, it was like on top of an attack and a style of play that already functioned really well. So it was like a plus. It was additional in addition to something that already worked, right? Now, nothing works, but we're still doing inversion and defenders popping up in random fucking positions and shit. But if you seen Martin Odegaard pass the ball to Martinelli for a goal, it would be shocking to your system because we just don't see it. We don't operate like that anymore. It's so rare. That's why everybody was gagging for the Wigan game, because it was the first time in a long time that the system just, and it's not that the system created it for Eze. Eze's natural abilities was him passing the ball and all that, and but a 10 finding space in the middle and threading the ball through to a winger to score is very, very rare for Arsenal these days. And but we're still seeing some fuck ass inversion and shit. Random fullbacks popping up. It's the system is broken at this point. It's too much. We need to go back to basics. I just want to have a normal system, and I don't mind a little bit of inversion and stuff to add something additional to, but it feels like it's almost like the only thing that we can do. And if we don't have defenders scoring and center backs threading the ball through, we may not score, and that's wild. It's serious when our defenders are creating chances with our defenders. Wild. If you saw just randomly in the game, Saka give the ball to Martinelli and Martinelli scored, you'd be shocked because it just doesn't happen very often anymore. Let's see. Yeah, because that system was left heavy. Arteta has been trying to have good triangles on both sides. Not that I'm trying to defend Arteta. Yeah, I mean, maybe it was left heavy, but ultimately I still don't understand why you can't create those dynamics again in a different way. Because basically what we've done is over the last 3 seasons really heavily shifted to that. I'm not a tactico, but we've heavily shifted to that juego de posición where everybody is in their boxes and nobody moves. We had elements of that in past seasons, but it wasn't so rigid where you wouldn't see our attackers get close together. It's almost unnatural to see our number 10 in the 10 position or an attacking midfield at zone 14. We've gotten so rigid that I feel like it's more that than just like, oh, it was left foot heavy. I get it that you had Granit Xhaka and you had Zinchenko, and so the left-hand side was ticking, but also the right-hand side is broken. So that doesn't really account for how everything on the right-hand side is gone now. You can't replicate those dynamics even at its basic level, meaning that, Ben White would overlap, Saka would get the ball, evade that, come central, give the ball to Odegaard or the 10. The 10 would slip that ball to Saka again, and we would like shift them around by having 3 moving pieces, passing the ball quickly in triangles, and then create an opening for Saka to kick the ball in the back of the net, or Odegaard to find zone 14 and get the cut back. We can't even replicate those triangles. So forget the left side. The left-hand side has been broken since Xhaka has left. So forget that. The right-hand side, he can't even replicate those dynamics. And so I don't know if it's about being left heavy or anything like that. I just think that he stumbled upon something that really worked, and he has actively raveled it because he wants everybody to stay in little boxes, because he's so afraid that if we lose the ball and people are in other positions and we're getting close and stuff, they're going to score. I think juego de posición and the way that we play is fully based on trying to keep the other team from scoring. I think it's just that simple. And he cannot replicate those actions in the way that we were playing before, because it relies upon almost relational. I don't know what it's called, but it's like the way that you play when it's more based on relationships and players getting close and creating triangles and overloads in certain places. He has completely scrapped that and went for a system that keeps everybody in their spot so that we won't get countered against. I think it's just that. He cannot replicate the dynamics of the 22-23 or even 23-24 system, because that will require him to let the fuck go. And he can't. Systems over technicality is the MA way. I miss the Nasri Carzolas of the world. Can do so much with that formation. So right heavy. I hear you on that too. The right heavy thing, I understand that as well. Is like we were very right side dominant. We allowed that left-hand side to kind of collapse after Zinchenko and Xhaka left. But even the right-hand side that was working, it doesn't even work anymore. And he can't do anything to fix it. And I don't know why he can't fix it. Mikel is doing the very thing that people wrongfully accuse Pep of, overcoaching regiment football, which removes all creativity. Why are we so open in the UCL? It doesn't make sense to me. I think it's mostly because teams don't sit in those deep blocks against us in the Champions League. I think, you saw what Wigan did essentially, right? Wigan came up with no blocks, no nothing, and got whooped. In the Champions League, everybody backs themselves and they play their way. The Premier League, if there was like a chart going around saying that all of the open play, either chances or goals have gone back a certain amount of percentage this season. And I think that's mostly due to the fact that you can almost bet that if you play up against almost, I mean, we're talking about a team like Brentford, who's almost like in sixth, seventh place. They are known to play a block or some sort of way to just kind of quell the other team while they go and fish for set pieces and things of that nature and play on the counterattack or whatever. And so I think in the UCL, they just don't do that. So there's all this space for us to naturally get central. But Arteta is scared as fuck of those mid and low blocks. He's scared to death of them. He knows that because we saw it plenty of times in the 22-23 season in particular, that if we lost the ball, we were very susceptible. And there were times where, yeah, Gabriel and Saliba and Ramsdale were not enough. They came down there and they scored goals, and he doesn't want that. So when we play against especially those deep blocks and mid blocks in the Premier League, we pass it very slow and we don't try to take any risks, because if they get the ball, they're just going to kick it down to one person and we're going to be, SOL. So Champions League just allows for more space, and it's just easier for us to score those goals. Instead of high risk, high reward, Mikel wants low risk, high reward. I agree with that. And yeah, but we also take way more risks in the passes and the counterattacks. We take more risks because everybody, I don't even know if it's so much that we take more risks, because it's just more natural for us to be able to get into those positions. And let's just be honest, the Premier League is a harder competition. The Premier League and the Champions League are two completely different things. We're stomping teams out in that competition. So you can just knock it straight down to them teams aren't as good. Those teams are not as good, and they also don't play tactics to stop us. They just kind of do their thing. So I don't even know if it's so much that we're taking more risks, because I think if Inter had sat there in a deep block against us like they did the season prior, we would have lost that game like we did. You guys remember last year in the Champions League, we played against Inter at their spot. And it was Inzaghi instead of Shivu, and they didn't come out. They got that stanky goal from the penalty for, the European handball. They scored, sat in a deep block, and we couldn't break them down. So essentially, you don't have to take risks if, the highway is wide open for you to just go down there and just do your thing. So I don't know if it's just like we're just more adventurous. It's the other teams just allow us to play our game. But in the Premier League, people do what they know is going to work against us. And the reality is when we get into these harder kind of the quarterfinals and this and stuff in the Champions League, teams are going to start sitting in the blocks against us then too. Unless it's like PSG, who are they're going to back themselves because they think that they're going to know that they're better than us. They're going to do that because they're going to know it's going to work. They know it's going to work. But the league phase, those guys are not. They're not doing shit. Let's be real. We fucked up not getting a proper left wing for right wing. I honestly think Dowman is our best option, but shame he's been injured. Not the Lego head would play him anyway. I mean, we didn't get the left wing. So there's definitely that. And he's decided that Eze is not going to play there. So we're stuck with Martinelli and Trossard again for a third season. And it's not great. So yeah, but the whole Madueke signing in itself it's going to sound so harsh for me saying this, because it's not that I necessarily feel like he hasn't worked hard and he hasn't contributed. I think he has contributed. But I don't think it's worked, because the whole point was to get more goals and to add more quality. So, and I don't necessarily know that he's moved the needle for us. So you can be a good player and not move the needle. And I just wonder if we've maybe signed too many players like that over the last couple of seasons. You think about, Jokeris and Madueke and unfortunately Eze, which I don't think is all his fault anyway. Marino, Calafiori, Kai Havertz, you can name so many players over the last couple of seasons that have not really moved the needle for us. They've made us maybe different, um, or they've added a different tool to the toolbox, but have they really upped the levels that much? No, because I mean, to be honest, I feel like we've regressed. Technically, the football has regressed, the talent has regressed. So, I think Madueke will be the one that people really look at and say, like, that was a horrible signing. But I think you'd be hard pressed to find very many signings that have moved the needle for Arsenal. Like a needle mover for like a Liverpool was, buying Salah and buying Mane and buying Virgil van Dijk and players like that. How many players have we bought in that is like that was a true level raiser? I think you'd be hard pressed to really find one. Um, so yeah. That sounds so bad to say because I like so many of these players, and I think we are missing Kai Havertz and Marino badly because they add something different, but they're not like these elite world-class players either that we've needed for basically since the first time that we challenged, essentially. A Chelsea player, obviously Arteta's choice. Outside of Saka, no attacker has thrived under Arteta. I think he doesn't have long left, even if we win the Prem, we have failed to overcome big tests within the league. Was Madueke an Arteta choice or a Birder preference? Mm, well, I'll say this is they've made it abundantly clear that nobody gets signed unless Arteta wants them. There's not a single player being signed for Arsenal Football Club that is not at least been ran by Arteta. He plays a big role in things. They always talk about how he has a lot of control, he has a lot of influence in the club. So I don't think there's going to be a single signing since he's become manager that doesn't have his fingerprints on it. Um, so yeah. I also don't understand this trust that Arteta has with Martinelli and Jesus. I mean, not like G14 has played great, but to finish the game with Jesus was very weak. Yeah, he was very shocking, unfortunately, against Wolves. Um, yeah, I don't with Jesus. There's a reason why he's not at Man City anymore, and we've seen it. So, um, as talented as he is, he's a head case. He doesn't score anywhere near enough goals, and now he's injury prone, and he had injuries at Man City as well. So, yeah, relying upon Gabriel Jesus in 2026 is tough, but also Kai is injured, and Gyökeres wasn't doing anything. I think if Marino was fit at all, that we'd see more of him instead of Jesus. So, yeah, it's a tough one, but Jesus should have left before. But we always wait too long and then the player gets injured and we have to keep them longer. So, Jesus should have went he should have went a long time ago. It's tough, man. It really is. Like I just think it's not that the team is bad and it's not like it lacks quality, but if you have to rely upon Jesus in 2026, I do feel like you've probably made an error somewhere. Madueke looks like a club signing, probably something to do with Chelsea finances was the talk when we signed, and apparently Saka recommended him as well, so who knows? And Arteta is just not going to be the manager as well to improve him. I think at the end of the day, even if you thought Madueke had some sort of like talent that just hadn't been honed, a manager that is actively making all of his attackers worse is not going to make a super inconsistent forward any better. So I think if Arteta is or was going to be successful at Arsenal, the attackers need to be ready-made and Teflon. So hard to change that Arteta can't make them into anything else. but you've seen what he was like with Aubameyang. Aubameyang was a seasoned Golden Boot striker at Arsenal, and even he struggled to score under Mikel because Mikel wanted to shunt him out to the left. So, yeah, Arteta needs an offensive coordinator. He can't. He's not. Who said that he was the person that made Sane and Sterling better? I need to talk to that person because I haven't seen him do any of that shit. For us. There was a period of time where I do think that Martinelli and Saka were really thriving under him, but that's gone. So I don't know who said that, but ugh. Losing Marino is definitely a big loss. I agree. I'm not sure Arteta wanted he is a luxury player. He's not a luxury player though. You guys, I feel like he's not a luxury player. He's just not the type of player that fits in a team that does not want any creativity in it whatsoever. Arteta does not prioritize hurting the other team. He prioritizes stopping other teams from hurting us. So his midfield composition is always about, well, how are we going to keep the ball? How are we going to win the ball? And how are we going to sit in our shape best? Those are the three main components. Keep the ball, win the ball back, and sit in your shape. Who are going to do those things? Maybe pressing a little bit as well. And that goes with out of possession. His choices are never about who is going to be the most dangerous for the other team to have to deal with. Who is most likely to score a goal for us? Who is most likely to take more shots and hurt the other team? It's never about that, ever, ever. And it damn sure ain't about playing good football at all. So it's not about him being a luxury player. He would be a important cog in the wheel of any manager that wants to play attack-minded football. He's not a luxury player. I think a lot of teams have players like Eze in them and don't view them as luxury players. It's not like, do you guys think that Shirky is a luxury player? He ain't doing shit off the ball. He's a chunky. He's not doing shit. The guy is not an off the ball monster. He is a little short, round thing running around, popping balls into the attack. Like that's it. So he's not a luxury player, is he? He's not. Wirtz is not a luxury player, is he? These are players that managers that prioritize hurting the other team find ways to utilize. And yes, they have to modify their game to suit the Premier League and suit teams that want to be more defensively solid. But Eze is not a luxury player. He's not a luxury player. He's not a luxury player, dude. He's not. To me, he's not a luxury player. But I feel like if Arteta utilized him differently, he could do better, but I don't know. I feel like that's almost no, I don't did anybody before we signed view him as a luxury player? Because I did not. I just thought that he was a typical attack-minded, probably more of like a left forward, creative forward or a 10 that, in the right system with the right encouragement would do really well for us. But talking about luxury players and shit, that is just a nice way to relieve Mikel from any responsibility and making attack-minded players work in this team. Anybody who's not good out of possession is a waste for Arteta. They just are. Emile Smith-Rowe was a waste for him. Vieira was a waste for him. Now Eze is a waste for him. He has a real issue with traditional 9s and 10s. I'll say that for sure. And what did both of those players bring to the team? Goals. So goals and attack. So he doesn't like any of those types of players, dude. We always tend to revise history when newly signed players fall off. It's on Mikel that he can't coach attackers. It's clear. No, I viewed him being similar to a Wirtz. Luxury player has been kind of like, I don't think you'd ever find people that watch Serie A or the Bundesliga or La Liga calling number 10s or creative players luxury players. That is something that is very uniquely attached to the Premier League because the idea of traditional number 10s has been coached out of this league. And they're coming back, just like traditional 9s are coming back. The year, like the era of the false nine and teams with no tens is going to go away. Teams are bringing back tens, and you can sense it. So I think where we went to this total kind of like everybody needing to be able to do everything, sharing goals, false nines, and no tens, we're going to go back to, because football is cyclical. We're going to go back to everybody having a specific role, and tens and traditional nines coming back in. And this is another reason why I feel that Arteta, you know, is not going to be a good manager for us moving forward. You said after the Sunderland 2-2 that Arsenal team is the most prepared side to play through injuries in multiple games in a week. If that were true, we'd be clear by 9 points. I mean, I stand by that. What does injuries and multiple games a week have to do with Wolves? Do you think that we didn't win that game because we were tired? Do you think we didn't win that game because we didn't have a superior team to Wolves? I stand by that. This team is one of the deepest squads in world football. They have more than enough quality to have beat Wolves and Nottingham Forest, both of which, if you win both of those games, you're 9 points clear, like you're saying. So, what does that have to do with the price of milk? This team has absolutely everything it needs right now to have gone ahead and won this league. And a lot of it does have to do with the fact that Liverpool and City are not as good as they were in the past. But you cannot look at this team and say, well, I told you we weren't good enough to beat Wolves. I told you we weren't good enough to beat Nottingham Forest. Yeah. Um, that doesn't make any sense. That the team literally it's just about the mentality, and I stand by that this is our best opportunity to win the league because we basically had no competition because Liverpool were shit and Man City were shit, and we had a deep squad and we had a lead. So, yeah, um, it's you can't revise history on this season. This was a really good opportunity for us to win multiple trophies. This team is more than good enough to win trophies. And you know what? They've been good enough to win trophies for a while. I think it's just mostly due to the fact that they maybe don't have the mentality. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you're trying to push it on to me and say I told you so or whatever, you told me so. Feel better? Brap says, I would be interested to see what a new manager does with the squad. I would too. Let's see. We didn't beat Wolves because 4 reasons that converge. We didn't play great. Hincapié was still celebrating the goal and he didn't defend their first goal, and we stalled like a small team. Let's see. I mean, I did say we would draw to Wolves. The thing is, though, is like drawing to Wolves is not, nobody sat there and said that they thought that we would drop points to Wolves because we didn't have enough depth and we didn't have enough quality or talent to beat that team. We could not win at the Etihad at all, not beat City at all this season, and not beat Liverpool at all this season, and still win the league because we dropped points to Nottingham Forest and Wolves, and that doesn't have anything to do with our talent level, really, or our depth. That's all mentality. So this is a really good opportunity for us to win it. And I can't see anything beyond the fact that the manager, when we get into these periods where we get a little bit shaky, cannot figure out how to get this team into a mindset to relax within the pressure. They feel very they look like they're burdened by it instead of excited to win the Premier League. They're burdened by the responsibility. And I feel like Arteta adds to that in some ways, but I can't prove it because I don't, I can only look at it from the outside. But if I had to guess, I would say that they feel overly burdened and the manager doesn't seem to be able to get them out of that burden feeling and into an excited feeling. They never look excited when they get ahead, ever. They always look, the only time that they've looked relaxed in a title race is when they were behind. So, Let's see. Yeah, all 4 of those factual reasons can be put on mentality, but that's subjective. You can't know 100%. It's a very good guess, though. Yeah, I don't know for sure. So, but I would guess that even with the weird lineup options, even with not having Kai Havertz, even with players, playing lots of minutes, that you would expect us to beat Wolves and you would have expected us to probably beat Nottingham Forest. So when I said that, because here's the thing as well, is that when we got into November, it became almost like the entire footballing world had decided that we were going to win the league. Not just Arsenal fans, but the media and rivals. Everybody had kind of decided it, because we should have been 9, 12, 15 points clear. City were dropping points. A big part of that was because of City's form and Liverpool's form as well. So you don't get to that point and then when we don't do it, start saying, yeah, but you said that we could win the league. Of course we could win the league. When I saw some of the most negative people in this fan base celebrating the wins in November and saying that we're going to win the league, they were happy, so we all knew that this was a good opportunity and we could. So now that we're flagging, you can't sit back and say, oh, well, you said that you thought that we could win the league because we could. Because we could. Like, we could. Let's be serious. Who do you blame for Wolves' equalizer? I'm going to be honest. I know a lot of people blamed Raya. I actually think Gabrielle overcompensates quite a bit when we're struggling, and there's no reason why you should have been in that position. And I know people are like, "Oh yeah, but Raya didn't call for that." How do you know that Raya did not call for it? He was right there. Why is Gabrielle there? I actually think when you look at it and Raya's catching it, there's no reason for Gabrielle to even be there. Why is he standing in front of Raya anyway? So for me, the more I looked at it, it looked more to me like the Sunderland one, where even like you saw it against Newcastle, where when we're under pressure, there are times where I feel like Gabriel overcompensates. There was even a time in the Brentford game where he doesn't get the first contact on one of those long throws. And instead of just getting up, he falls on the ground and tries to fake a penalty or a foul like he did against Newcastle. To me, I think Gabriel encourages a lot of nervousness back there because he overcompensates. He tries to do everything and he doesn't listen. And so where I think there is some truth to Ryan not being able to stop goals like the first one, because it kind of feels a little bit similar to the Bournemouth goal that Krupi scored, I think it was, where it was a good shot and it was hard, but like maybe another goalkeeper saves that. But you also have to look at the midfield and say, why the fuck were they wide open? Like there was nobody, like somebody mentioned Hincapié and he was still celebrating. So ultimately, with most of our goals, I don't think any of them are individual errors except for like the Zubamendi mistake and or the Gabrielle mistake. I think everybody has to share some of the blame for the goal, the equalizer. But if I had to say who I think shouldn't have been standing there, I would say I don't think Gabrielle should have been standing there. I think, if he's not in the way trying to do everything because he's nervous and overdoing it, then Raya just catches that ball and the game ends. I felt the same way after the Sunderland one too, but you can't say that. So, let's see. Calafiori was the wrong guy to bring on. Raya could have stopped the first one. I think it's not that he could have stopped the other one. I think that there's just negatives when your goalkeeper is short, and I think he is short, so long shots are going to be harder for him to score. That's how I kind of feel about it. So, yeah, I think that when you look at it, if you were 6'4" instead of 6 foot, you probably boop, you know. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Calafiori was the wrong person to bring on. Raya could have stopped the first one, please. Yeah. And again, I feel like I see some weirdness in the comments, and I'm just trying to understand why we're deciding all of a sudden that we never had a chance to win this league and our defense is not good. Strange, you know? If anything, the main issue with this team is probably the manager, which I think a lot of people were kind of saying, because I don't really remember a lot of people saying that Arteta was, except for there's a couple of people in the fan base that are loud that think Arteta's a world class manager. But I think a lot of people were kind of waiting for him to win something first. So I don't know. It feels weird to say you guys were saying that Arteta was a world class manager and our defense is the best in the world, and da 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 da, because nah. But our defense is really, really good, and I'm not gonna revise history on our defense. I feel like it's just a little disingenuous right now to sit here and say that because they conceded those 2 goals against Wolves that I told you that they weren't any good, because let's be real, our defense is probably the main reason why we are where we are. So, we've still conceded the least amount of goals in the league, and people are revising history on our defense. It's just strange. I think our defense is good because everyone, including our striker, is primarily playing defense. Even the most positive fans are turning on him. It's bad. Who? Turning on who? Arteta will be a world-class manager because he will train winners, and you will see the difference. Much easier job to do. Mascara would have been a better sub at that point from 2-0. It was just a case of game control. Has anyone noticed that our midfield gets ran through a lot now? Martinelli, oh my God, what was that performance? I don't know what was wrong. I don't know what's wrong with Martinelli. He looked tired, but he also just looked like he was being arrogant at times. Doing the 2-1 was just so embarrassing. So I don't know. Never really thought about it at the time because I was losing it, but bringing Kala on for Trossard against bottom of the league Wolves to defend a 1-goal lead really is diabolical. This kind of creeped in last season, though, and I mean, we blamed it on all injuries, but I had mentioned this quite a few times that it just didn't make sense at the amount of goals that we were conceding after we were, like, ahead. Case in point, there was a game that we played at home. I remember I was at Topgolf, and I told them to turn the game on, and they put the game on, like, pretty much everywhere for me to see, and I had to sit there and watch Arsenal concede, and I think that I think we lost that game because we scored first. Kivior scored a goal on a set piece, and then we let Eze score on a set piece for them. And then had to sit there and watch what's his name? Mateta run Saliba and Odegaard over and score. And I'm like, Arsenal are the worst team when they have a goal. What is that? And we kind of have that same thing now, where when we get into the 1-goal lead, instead of pushing for another goal, we kind of bounce between half trying to score and half trying to defend. And I feel like we can't, you need to decide who you're going to be. And I think a good team tries to score another goal because they know that if they're constantly in that wanting to score, that eventually they'll score. But Arsenal kind of half-ass do both. They half-ass defend and they half-ass score or try to score. And Arteta does more damage with his subs. The like-for-like subs, the bringing on defenders, it's just strange, it's just weird. I don't get Arteta subs. I don't think Arteta gets his subs either. I think he remember the 3 games that he had where he took off almost everybody at halftime? The Forest game, the United game, and the Liverpool game, and it reaped 0 rewards. He was showing his hand right then that he had no clue what he was doing. Because when you do that, you limit your options. If you just, take Trossard off and bring on Martinelli, and you just take Odegaard off and you bring on Eze, there's no opportunity to get more attacking because they can't come back on. So all you have left is defenders to bring on. And then you do silly shit like, okay, I'm going to bring on Calafiori because that's going to make us more attacking. Like, what's he doing? Arteta, he's strange. Mr. Holiday says, it's not the squad, it's the manager. We have a great squad. Teams would kill for a squad like this. Arteta's failing at managing the squad. I kind of agree with this. I think, Arteta is having like some of his same problems that he's had in the past couple seasons, where because before it was we don't have the squad quality. Remember, cast your mind back to like 22, 23, 23, 24, where there were some players that were just completely iced out of the squad, and people were, oh, that's you can't play them. Arteta he cannot simply let them touch the pitch because everything will fall apart. And the only times you saw them was when he heavily rotated, and then they would lose. Like, I think it was like the Carabao Cup against West Ham away from home when Ben White had the bleached hair. He played like Fabio Vieira and Nelson, and it basically rotated the entire squad. And then people use that as like some sort of like, see, Arteta's right. He should never play any of those players because if you do it, it all falls apart. And so everybody said it was okay that he was running Saka and Odegaard and Ben White and all these players into the ground. He was absolutely running them into the ground because, God forbid, Emile Smith-Rowe played against Sunderland. It was nuts, right? Even in the cups, we would play really strong 11s and not rotate anybody. Now, fast forward to this season, and he has one of the deepest squads in Europe with tons of quality, maybe not the elite top quality that like City have, in certain positions, but they don't have the depth that we have, so, and he's still running his key players into the ground. He has Ben White on the bench, not Cedric, Ben White, and he won't play him. He doesn't have El Neni anymore. He has Norgard, and he will not play him. That is Arteta. But I always felt like that was just a cop-out, that people were justifying him running these players into the ground and not rotating because, God forbid, Emile Smith-Rowe played a cup game. So just keep running Odegaard into the ground. God forbid, you let Nelson start, against Brentford and like stuff like that. And you're seeing the repercussions of that because some of our players will never be the same. So, yeah. Takun, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, why has Saka regressed this much? Because he's had many injuries, including like a grade 4 or something hamstring tear, and he's still being relied upon. And Arteta ran him to the ground. Ran him in the ground. Like, we knew this would happen eventually. We knew he'd get an injury, and all of a sudden, like, he would never be the same. So it's giving midfield arc. I don't know how much know much about Norgard as a Brentford player, but as a former captain and a Premier League proven player, I would have thought he would have been used more in Premier League games, not just in cups. Surely we can manage game states better. We can if we just decide that, I don't think that it's hard to manage the game state when you've pretty much stripped the team of their technical quality to just pass around. So it's a weird one. We can control the game states better because we've seen it, but it feels like we just have like a distinct lack of technical quality when we get under pressure. And so how would you relieve pressure? You would do it by popping the ball around, wouldn't you? And this team doesn't seem to be able to do it. So yeah. To piss you off, you mean? I don't know what you mean. 3 starters, 3 subs forwards only: Madueke, Havertz, Martinelli, Jesus, Gyökeres, Trossard, Fabio Vieira. The thing about Fabio Vieira, just like everybody else that was in our squad that wasn't good enough, is they still could have played more minutes at times so that we didn't run our players into the ground. There are games that you just do not need to start Saka and play him for the full 90 or bring him on. There's games that you didn't have to do that with Ben or Odegaard or Saliba or whoever. So you can laugh at Fabio Vieira all you want, but You're even seeing that even with better players, he won't rotate. So is it really about Fabio Vieira not being good enough, or is it because Arteta can't manage his squad? I don't know. So yeah, he is good enough to play at least at least an hour. How big is the Saka extension, even if it feels doom and gloom right now? I mean, were you scared that he was gonna leave? I don't think I was ever afraid that he was gonna go. So, it feels big, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's like you knew he was gonna stay. If you lost him, you'd be in a shit ton of trouble. So, I think it is big. It's not like I was afraid that he wasn't gonna stay. I think the Saliba one was a little bit more like, is he gonna stay or is he gonna go? So it is big. It is what it is, you know. I didn't even read or look at any of the quotes, so I'm unprepared to talk about that. The timing was just so poor. He ain't worth 300K, but Kai deal forced our hand. What would you do if I were Arteta right now? I would forbid the team to stall something again. That Rice corner was a disgrace, and part of the reason we lost. Mentality does come from the coach sometimes. Interesting. Um, I mean, they did like a short corner when we needed a goal that just said everything. It was the short corner, and then it went to Zubamendi, who's been a good crosser for us, but he just crossed it straight out of bounds for a Wolves corner or a Wolves throw in. Um, they just lose their whole minds when they're under pressure, and I just think they get so fearful to concede that even when they're in the attack, they can't fully focus on attacking because they're constantly in the back of their mind like, "Oh my god, I don't wanna concede." So they take a short corner so that they can keep possession because God forbid Wolves get the first touch and then it goes to one of their players and then they're off. So there's just a distinct level of fear in this team that creeps into everybody, including our more confident players. So, yeah. Why was Rice arguing with Eze? Because Eze doesn't do the defensive stuff. I don't know. Um, so yeah. He says we can win a big thing in the next few years, not this year. Whatever. Like, I mean, listen, do you guys really care about what these players are saying? Really? They don't. Who cares? They just say whatever they think we want to hear. They haven't been honest ever. Except for maybe Xhaka. Xhaka is probably the only Arsenal player recently that has sat up there and said anything real. Not like ever. He said, if you're not, ready to play, sit on the bench. Don't come out here. So, I don't listen to exactly what, you know, Rice said in his interview is exactly things that I've heard Odegaard say. We have to respond. It's also things that I've heard Odegaard say. Sorry, not Odegaard, Arteta. You know, we need to respond. It's still in our hands. We can still win. We're pushing. We're together. Like, I'm not trying to hear that. Like, they all say the same things. They're not going to say anything different. So I don't know why people take the quotes and they're like, what do you think this means? It doesn't mean anything. Because they're gonna, I mean, the only thing that can change is if they change the way that they play. That's it. Um, Declan is running on fumes. He's being run into the ground as well. Well, Arteta thinks Norgard is a League Two player, apparently, because it's like Norgard is being so disrespected, but this is not the first player that's just been iced out of this team, only for them to come into the team later on. And we're like, why didn't we play them? It's not like Arteta didn't have Kiwior on the bench. while Rob Holding was actively playing against us and winking at us when we're 4-1 down at the Etihad and our title dreams are going right down the toilet. So Arteta is known for having better players on the bench. And again, Kivior was not the answer to all of our issues, but Kivior's way better than Rob Holding. And what happens with that is when you play inferior players, it either angers players or it destroys their confidence when they're actively watching somebody who's not good play and they're not. So I think Kivior had an uphill battle from the beginning because the beginning of his Arsenal career was watching Rob Holding play in front of him. Rob Holding, when he left us, couldn't get a game for Crystal Palace, but Arteta had him playing a significant role in our title race. While Kivior, an international player, a young one that had not been, tainted yet, could have come in and probably played a bigger role. So Norgard is not the first version of this, but people justified that Rob Holding one. And it was just like, you guys are really sick. Like, genuinely, I get it. It's, Arteta's not always in the wrong. But playing Rob Holding when, we had bought Kivior was kind of ridiculous, So Declan will be dead and Zubi will be dead. And Norgard won't even have enough appearances in the Premier League to get a medal if we get it, So that's on Arteta, man. I don't know why he does it. It's weird. Arteta needs to play his favorites in fear of losing the dressing room, it seems. Ugh. It's dark. Norgard has been very good in the last 4 games he played, and he still can't convince Arteta. Holding was mid, nothing special. I mean, he was awful. Playing Holding instead of Kivior is a sackable offense. Example, Gyökeres right now. Norgard not techie enough for real. Does Arteta like techie players? Because Norgard is the most quintessential, basic kind of standard player that you could find. So it's not like Arteta likes techie players. So I don't know if it's that. Rice is only honest when he's caught on camera, not when he's doing interviews. Arteta subs might be costing us bad choices lately. Yeah, I hear that. I think Rice and Eze were not arguing. They were talking about the corner taker. Was that Rice's first corner ever from the right side? No idea. I mean, literally just, is it impossible to get it in the mixer? I hate to just boil it down to get it in the mixer, but is it not just that? Or do we have to overthink absolutely everything? So when I saw the Wolves lineup, I felt he missed the play, and I think that's the play. Red card against Tottenham away. I personally think if Arteta wants to try things, he should try Saka left wing and Eze in the 10. I just think, it's not, for me, it's not just about the lineup, because I feel like if the intention is not different, it doesn't change. It's just people have watched Odegaard playing the 10, Marino playing the 10, Havertz playing the 10, Eze playing the 10, but even though there's been variations in performances, it's not like we're getting this amazing attacking performance when we change one for the other. I feel like our intention needs to be different more than anything else. I think the intention to be brave and to attack and to take a little bit more risks and be more direct and things like that will help. Yes, playing better players together will help, but when you have so many injuries and players in and out, I think it's difficult to just get your best team out there, because I mean, when's the last time we've seen what our quote unquote would be best team anyway? You just kind of need to change your tactics at this stage so that you can allow players that aren't as clinical to have more chances than just one half chance. That's it. And so for me, but I don't think he'll do that because he's too scared to change things now. I mean, he didn't even really fully back the Gyökeres, trying to get people to pass him the ball, which he had all of preseason. I mean, let me be fair to him. He didn't have all of preseason because Jokeris, the signing took a long time, but he had like 1 game in Asia and 2 games in the UK to basically require all of his players to get Jokeris the ball, and he has gone through multiple games and never getting a single shot. And as a striker, you're only as good as your service at times. So, do you when it was like lower stakes, when you could have tried things and still recovered your season, Arteta wasn't willing to change his ways. He kind of half did it. Kind of half did it. But when it got a little bit more he got the pressure was on him, he kind of went back to type. So you saw Eze being asked to do the Odegaard role, you started seeing Jokeris being asked to do the Kai Havertz role, and neither one of those fit those requirements, and they both struggled. So you think Arteta's going to change things now? He's not. He's not going to change anything now because if he was scared in September, he's going to be scared now. So that's why he won't change anything. When I saw the Wolves lineup, I felt he missed the play. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. What you set up here, you think was the play. Well, not playing Eze after those two assists was fucked. And this is coming from somebody that doesn't necessarily think that, Eze has painted himself in glory. I think he's been incredibly passive at times, but if there was ever a time to reward a performance, it was the Wigan performance. And he proceeded to sit him on the bench and then ask him to save us with like 10 minutes to go. It was just, I don't know what Arteta's thing is, but I mean, he could have just went with the same thing. He could have rested Zubi, played Rice in the 6, played Eze and Saka in the 10s. Yes, of course it's Premier League, but it's literally the worst team in Premier League history. Then you could have played your running attackers because you would have had another player to make the ball stick. He just went back to tight. He was scared of Wolves. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know if Eze is made for a top team. It's not working. The man is going ghost mode in tough games. Yeah, it's both. I don't want to be disingenuous and just blame Eze for everything. I think it's disingenuous to say that it's all the system and also that he hasn't added to his Casper performances by just allowing the game to pass him by. He's never desperate to get the ball. He's kind of like lackadaisical. But, if I had not seen Arteta kill off every number 10 that he's ever had, then I would just fully be like, Eze's just not doing it. But outside of Odegaard, he doesn't seem to be able to work with any creative midfielders. So bad that, Emile Smith-Rowe was basically, and I know Emile, again, he's not a world-class player, but that doesn't mean that Arteta didn't kill him as well. At times, just there were times where he put him in the left 8 and told him to just pass the ball back to a defender, never let him play on the half turn, Vieira as well. So yeah, I think ultimately, like when you haven't seen him be able to thrive with any attacking midfielder and you haven't been able to see him thrive with any striker, then you have to look at it and say, even if they're varying levels of talent, maybe he doesn't know how to coach them into it. Especially with how bad the first half at Wolves was for both teams, as they might have been able to do something. And there is a difference between rewarding somebody with a start after they have a good performance and empowering them and then dropping them and then asking them to come in. I just don't think Arteta's the arm around the shoulder guy. I don't think he's somebody that manages his players well because he doesn't seem to be able to get any of his players into a flow state. When they're playing well, he takes them off. When they're playing poorly, he leaves them on. So I just think he's pretty much like not the best man manager. And so he probably didn't see anything wrong with dropping Eze, but like he's clearly playing with no confidence. So if you want to continue to kill him, yeah, don't play him when he plays well, but don't expect him to save you at the end of the game either. Eze is good enough for a top team. I agree. Think we see Gyökeres not getting chances or not getting through balls as a new thing, but we forget Havertz and Jesus before had to drop deep to get the ball. Marino is our best 9 somehow. Can we find a good run of form in the run-in and show up as the best in Europe? I don't know. They have to decide that for themselves. Like, I don't know what Arsenal is gonna show up, you know? So, I don't know what Arsenal is gonna show up. So, it's hard to know if we can go on a run because I don't think it's just as simple as playing the best 11 that you can. Because even a decent 11 could not beat Wolves. So it's all about if they want it or not. And I'm not sure that they can get their mentality up. Trossard had a decent spell and then fell off a cliff. I mean, every single attacker that we've had has regressed, and some to a very like crazy degree. Trossard, when he first got into this team, was brilliant. When he first came from Brighton, that the first season he was great. And the second season, because Martinelli was really poor in the 23-24 season, Trossard was actually the guy that was doing it for us in that season, scoring big goals. He did that in the Champions League. He scored like that one goal against Everton. That was really great too, because we did not play well, but we needed a goal. The opening goal against Chelsea, I can name so many. Trossard was actually like our starting left wing in that season. And then when we kicked into gear in the end of that season, he was a big part of it. He hasn't really been able to find that, even though he had a decent, kind of goal return. I think his performances are really spotty, and they have been since then. Jesus is basically just a shell of himself. Martinelli, shell of himself. Odegaard, shell of himself. Saka, reaching, shell of himself. He's not quite there, but it's going towards there. Kai is probably the only one that's not fully done yet, but his injuries are terrible. And then Gyökeres and Eze and Madueke come in, and they've all been meh, so is it just every single one of them is ass, or, is Arteta a part of the blame? Jess, he did the same thing to Ethan. He played well against Portsmouth, then benched him against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. I don't think he has that sense of like, okay, this player is about to go on like a hot streak. Let me keep playing them. It's like he doesn't have that, like that touch that unfortunately Pep has. He knows how to get his attackers into a flow state. And then when they're tailing off, he can lift up another person, and then that person goes for a couple games, and then the other person is back in form again, and then he can shift and change it. Arteta can't do that. He can't do that. He just can't. Like, when's the last time anybody's been in form? Genuinely. Like, Clive was asking that on their podcast like yesterday, and I was like, I've been asking that since last season. I was like, none of our attackers are in form. The only player that I remember being in any semblance of form last season was Ethan for a significant amount of time. From the moment he got into the team to when he was taken out of the team, he was in form like basically that entire time. Everyone else was spotty and here and there, and the defenders were doing a lot of heavy lifting, lots of set pieces. So, yeah, it's weird. Arteta is not a great manager. He has run down great players to the ground. He has killed the confidence of most players. Every attacker has regressed this season, even Saka and Odegaard. Of course, but because people hate certain players, they're not honest. Like how people can see that Arteta doesn't, he is running Zubimendi into the ground and Timber. They act like they haven't done that. He hasn't done that with two better players. Like, I'm sorry, but like at a certain point, Saka and Odegaard were two of the best attackers in Europe. And Saka has still kind of maintained that. But Odegaard had two fantastic seasons where there's not a single player that we've put in that position since then that's been anywhere near what Odegaard was for those two seasons. And he played him until he got injured. He got injured last season and he has not recovered. But, "Oh, but he's captain, he should just." Even if you're captain, if your manager ran you into the ground, what you supposed to do? So it's sad because you're not gonna be able to replicate that. Players that can do what Odegaard did in those 2 seasons, slash with Saka, like, those players cost lots of money. So and they're not gonna be able to replace that. So, you need to build a team around Eze to cover his weaknesses. I mean, but that's everyone, except for, like, Rice and Saka, players like that are, like, all-arounders. They're just kind of unicorns in that way. Most players, you have to put them together so that their weaknesses don't show and their best attributes shine. So that's not just Eze. That's Martinelli. That's Gyökeres. That's Kai. That's Marino. That's Zubimendi. Except for Rice and Saka, who are probably the best option, no matter who you play with them, it'll go well. Most players, you have to limit their weaknesses and then also highlight their positives. That's not just Eze. That's everybody who's pretty much not like a world-class player, basically. You can be a top player and have weaknesses, by the way, but if you have a shit manager, you're gonna look like shit. Case in point, Timber. Timber is his main strengths are his defensive qualities and his ability to win the ball off of everyone. So why don't you just let him do that and then give the ball to better players? Hello. You know, Arteta has him playing Trent, like Trent. He's like, do Trent Alexander Arnold. That's not his game. So he's making him look worse. And oh, by the way, now I'm going to run you into the ground as well, post ACL. So good for that. So, but is Timber some bad player because he has weaknesses? No. But Arteta constantly shows his not so great traits by putting him into positions that don't suit him. It's crazy to me. Do you think we'll still win the league despite all of this, or we're doomed? I think it's done, but that's just me. As a rival fan right now, the only player that scares me is Eze and maybe Nani, only because he can do 1v1. Um, can't pay 65 million for 4 goals. That's not enough. Eze is an unknown factor, and I don't like that. We look like a team that's run out of steam. If we bottle the league to Man City, I hope Arteta won't let them take the League Cup as well. The banter will be so unbearable. Right now, we could lose to anyone, so I can't even think about that cup because it was so exciting to get to the final, but the psychological hold that Pep has over Arteta is just so big. I just don't know what's gonna happen in that game. I don't think it's Arteta. Why do they play well in Wigan, then flop in the big games? Because they don't have the mentality for it, and mentality comes within either maturity or with winning. I mean, you can try to shift the blame onto the players and say that they just don't have the mentality for it. But ultimately, like, relieving Mikel from responsibility just goes against everything that we've ever been taught in any circumstance whatsoever. If your boss doesn't matter, your manager doesn't matter, the person that's in top, like, then why is Arteta being paid 15 million a year if his job doesn't matter? If he doesn't influence his players, if influencing his players and getting them confidence and putting them into good positions, stuff doesn't matter. It's just the players just show up with a mentality, and then if they can't hack it, let's get him a whole new group of players. Like, I think this group with another manager is closer to winning something than Arteta with new players, because he's gotten so many new players and he's the common denominator. The team that lost in 22-23 is like not even the same team that's playing now, but they all just have bad mentalities. All of the players that he's bought, bad mentalities, they can't hack it, but Arteta, he's the answer. Like, we got to open our eyes here. We got to open our eyes here. It's like, we got to keep it real for like 5 seconds. Arteta, you can't I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know how Arteta is not responsible for not being, or at least somewhat responsible for not being able to get his players into a mental space to relax in pressurized games. Because, of course, Arsenal played well against Wigan. There was no pressure. It's all pressure. The pressure was on against Wolves. That's it. So it's all about pressure. And every time that this team, even if it's completely different players, again, no Party, no Xhaka, no Jesus really, because Jesus was a starter, no Zinchenko, no Ramsdale. The team is different now. It's different players now. It's not the same. They still crumble when the pressure is on. So it's just they're just buying a bunch of players that can't do it, but Arteta's just sitting there like, yeah, I got it. Like, no. The fear of losing. And again, I think this is a really good comment because it's the fear of losing. And Arteta's way of play and the way that we approach games, the way that we set up in games, the way that we prioritize stopping the other team rather than hurting the other team, all is built around the fear of losing. The fact that the motto of the team is if you can't win, don't lose, is all built around the idea of the fear of losing. The joy of winning is scarier than losing for them. Like they'd rather just draw because at least you didn't lose rather than push for the win and at least be proud that even if they lost, at least they tried to win. That all comes from the manager. So when you're in a situation where you only have one goal and the manager's bringing on defenders and you can't keep the ball, yeah, the players need to be responsible for their performances, but that mentality of being afraid to lose comes from the manager, from the way that you set up, from the tactics, from all of it. So you can't just relieve him from it. And maybe you're not trying to do that, but he's had so many different players and they've only gotten more and more afraid to push for goals. They've only gotten more and more afraid to go to big grounds and play their game. They've only gotten more and more afraid to push men forward and push for a goal at the end of games. They just don't do it anymore. And it's like when you set up against Wolves with your two worst attacking fullbacks, two DMs, and an attack that plays hot potato, what does that say? Do we want to score or are we just trying to maintain? I don't know. I worry for this team post Arteta, he might thinking. I worry for this team post Arteta, he might thinking. What do you mean by that? He might be thinking. And what do you worry about the team post Arteta? I remember Adebayor under Wenger played like Osimhen, then he wasn't the same player when he joined other teams. It's proven managers also have influence on players. But that's the thing. It's like if Arteta doesn't have the ability to make our players better and to get them into a mental state and influence them to be excited to win and not to be burdened by winning, then he has to be responsible in some way. And I'm not saying that they're not responsible as well, but again, I'm on the side of the fence where I feel like this has been more than enough time to see whether or not Arteta is the guy or not. And I think he's done well in some respects, but ultimately, like I would prefer to see this team with a different group or a different coach, even like a different whole group, like attack, like not attack, a whole different group of coaches to rid them of whatever is seeped into their thoughts under Mikel and see what they could do because I just don't believe that they're incapable of winning the league in the state in which the league is, which it was basically a one-horse race. It was basically a one-horse race. They found a way to fuck up a one-horse race. I don't think that this team is that bad where they couldn't win it. So I do want to see them with a different manager if Arteta cannot win the league. I just think it's been more than enough time. and I don't blame anyone really for wanting to give him enough time to kind of see it out. I would have got rid of him after last season, but I knew that they would keep him. It is what it is. And I also wanted to see him with new attackers because the whole idea was, he hadn't gotten the attackers that he needed. Well, he got 3 attackers, and somehow he hasn't been able to unlock a single one of them, even the best one in Eze. So I've seen enough. If you can't win it now, it is what it is. Hold on, somebody's texting me, and I don't know why. Leave me alone. When you just want to be left alone? That's kind of where I'm at. Okay. Let's see. Injuries after Arteta runs players into the ground and the new manager will have a massive job. Okay, I get that. And that's what I'm worried about. Saka, for example, doesn't look elite anymore. Yeah, I hear that. I totally understand that. That being said, the attack needs major surgery. I regret to inform you that where, you could probably get away with the midfielders to a certain extent, you still need to buy one, at least one. The defense is fine. You have Mascara, you have Hincapié, who I'm going to be I think Hincapié is a good player for us. I think Timber's good. I don't even think White is bad. I think that whole group of defenders is perfectly fine and doesn't need to be touched unless you wanted to maybe move White on because he's maybe injury prone or whatever. That's fine. I think you could leave everything as is. Maybe midfield, you bring in another midfielder, or just bring Ethan back, because I'd like to see him under another manager. The attack does need major surgery, but you have to do it. You need to. You need to be ruthless and move people on and start anew because the attack is just a hodgepodge of different tools, but nothing elite. So, yeah, maybe Saka never recovers and whatever, but, that just kind of is what it is. We're not going to be able to replace everyone. So, and Saka also could play midfield. I still think even though, Arteta, he used it and we didn't win, I think it's still an option for him in the future. So that's not a player that you just get rid of or lose faith in. He's literally like our best player. So yeah, you're going to have to do the surgery anyway. I agree. We're playing just to keep the ball with no urgency to score. Our players don't even play 1-2s or pass and move. We are afraid of mistakes and conceding, but we still make them anyway. You know what it is? It's like when you hold on to something so tight that you end up breaking it anyway. That's it. I think it's a saying. Maybe I made it up. If I did, it's a great analogy. I don't think I made it up. There's no way I made that up. But yeah, when you hold things too tightly, like you're scared to lose it, you could break it anyway. And I think that's basically what's happening with Arsenal is like they want it so badly and they don't want to give up the goal so badly that they hold on to it. They hold on to the ball so tight and they're so like rigid that they end up conceding anyway. So they're just not relaxed, and in January, February, you should still be relaxed. You still should be relaxed. I've never seen a team so scared in January and February. We're not even in April. Why are they shitting the bed? Enrique would be perfect. Injuries after Arteta. Okay, I read that one. It's not the players, it's him. Every Arsenal fan wants to be alone right now. Hell yeah. The last thing I want is for people talking to me right now. All are responsible, and with Arteta, so some of them who shit the bed in critical moments just leave with him, like Martinelli, Jesus, Odegaard, and Havertz. I mean, you could say that all you want. You can group up the players all you want and like put them in and say, well, they have to go as well. But ultimately, Arteta's had a couple different iterations of this team, and he can't get them over the line with tons of backing, players that he's wanted. Remember, he pushed for Havertz. So, I mean, he could have had almost any player that he wanted in the world at that point because we had not bottled the league, more than that first time. We were still young at the time. Our main attackers were like early 20s. So the idea was one of the best young projects in the world at that point. And instead of going out there and getting an elite attacker, we spent 65 million and 275 pounds a week on Kai. And somehow he's become one of the most important players in this team. And not only is he injury prone, but even he cannot carry us to a title. So yeah, you can get rid of Martinelli and Jesus and Odegaard and say they need to go as well. But honestly, I'd be interested to see Martinelli under another manager. Anybody who's been misprofiled or not played in their perfect position or left out to dry, I'd like to see them with another manager. I'd like to see Odegaard with somebody like a Cesc Fabregas that has played that same position at a high level. I would like to see it, because So yeah, we can kick them to the curb, but nothing will relieve Arteta from responsibility in this. So, you can, as long as he goes, you can get rid of those players too. That's fine. It's not going to stop Arteta from being the main person that probably needs to go at the end of the season. We've gotten rid of many players, and bought him lots of players. So at this point, he's the common denominator. Nkapie gets unnecessary heat from fans who love Kala. That's what we haven't spoken about. That's what we haven't talked about at all. Miles Lewis-Skelly. I don't want to talk about Calafiori and Nkapie because neither one of them to me are the issue. I think left back has become way too important in this team. It actually gives me the ick very badly that our left back is the key to everything. If our left back is not a certain player, and has been like that since obviously Zinchenko, then we're cooked. I'm so sorry, but let's just get back to the defenders winning the ball and giving the ball to the better players. I would love that. That being said, I saw a comp of Miles Lewis-Skelly that made me so sad because I was like, wow, the player is night and day. And I get that he started off preseason not the greatest, but I'm starting to feel like, because people are like, well, maybe we should just sell Miles. I cannot look at that comp and think that we need to sell that player. That player should be playing in midfield. He would solve a lot of our problems. Central access, being able to, receive the ball under pressure, progressing the ball. He's a good passer of the ball into that left half space, which has been basically a dead zone since Xhaka has left. No, he's not the greatest goal threat, but with another goal threat next to him, like an Eze or a Saka, maybe he could play well. That's another reason why I want to see this team with a different manager, because we get to the point where we should just get rid of this player. Get rid of Timber, get rid of Miles Lewis-Skelly, get rid of White, get rid of Odegaard, get rid of Martinelli, get rid of Trossard, get rid of Jesus. How many players are we going to get rid of? But we need to see them in the right position, playing in a system that suits their fucking strengths before I even think about selling. And Miles Lewis-Skelly is probably the biggest example to me of this. Why is he not able to play midfield? Why not? Why not? Why not? Especially because he's just suffering. You're not going to play him there anymore because you don't trust him. Fair enough. But don't you feel like it's important to rehabilitate some of the players that you're going to need? You have too many injuries to just leave players out, iced out. You don't have the luxury, because you run your players into the ground, to have players on the fringes that are so ice cold that when they come in, they look like a shell of themselves. So what are you going to do about Miles Lewis-Skelly? Because that type of player is not a player that you just sell. He's not. Go look at the comp. I retweeted it. I retweeted it because I'm like, this is actually so dark that this player does nothing. He has no role anymore in this team. Nothing. And if we get to a stage where we need to use him, nobody will feel comfortable. But he literally, he played at the Bernabeu. He played at the Bernabeu. What do you mean he can't play now? Arteta would not trust him at the Molineux. But he was like just a year ago, he could do anything at the Bernabeu. What's going on with him? I need to see these players with a different manager. If Arteta can't win the league, that's all I'm saying is I need to before we start just throwing people away, I need to see them with a different manager. I'm sorry. Like, I need to see them with a different manager. I cannot believe that Miles Skelly all of a sudden is just a bum. There's just no way. Everything changed when Arteta started obsessing over fine margins, XG, field tilt, and all that nonsense. Still hopeful we can see MLS in midfield, maybe against Mansfield. MLS is a pass and move player, and Arteta won't have that in midfield or in the middle, as if you pass and move and lose the ball, they counter you. It's like, let them counter. And just, if you have players, well, you've ran him to the ground and he's damn near dead now, but when you have players like, aggressive defenders that are good in their 1v1 duels like Mascara and Timber and Hincapié, and you have the Salibas and Gabriels, do you not have a little bit of leeway to allow the attackers to lose the ball and then us try to win it back? Because one player, like I've seen Timber win the ball off of so many people, and I was like, oh, he's cooked, and then he just wins it. Isn't that a better use of him anyway? It's just to allow them to win the ball off of these people and then them give the ball back to the attackers to see if they could try again. There was at points last season where, players like, let's say Odegaard, were trying to make incisive passes in the final third, and it wouldn't come off. And the timeline would just literally just shit their pants because he lost the ball. Do you guys not watch football? Teams that play good football that actually pass forward, their attackers lose it a lot. They take bad shots a lot. They misplace passes as well, but they keep doing it until it works. But we're conditioned now that if you lose the ball, it is like a red emergency. It is like the Titanic sinking. Oh my gosh, this person tried to pass it through the lines. It is an emergency. And the players act like it as well. So then people don't try anything because losing the ball is like a deadly sin in this team. It needs to be the case that you can lose the ball when you're trying things. Not stupidly, but we lose the ball now doing nothing. We lose the ball. We lose the ball trying to trap it now. So at least let the creative players do something. Let them at least try to do something that could help us. My goodness. I don't know. I know you guys watch other teams play. I know you guys watch teams that play better attacking football than us. Bayern, Barcelona, PSG. Look at their players. They lose the damn ball all the time. But if you lose it in this Arsenal team, oh my gosh, it is a red emergency. And I get it. When you lose the ball stupidly, like, Trossard, when he was just dribbling forward to no one and then just kicked it into the abyss, I get it. But when our attack-minded players are trying to thread the needle, it should not be an emergency. It shouldn't be. I saw Messi, my GOAT, lose the ball 20 times in a match. Probably 22-23 was where Arteta coached the whole team into its full potential, like almost everyone. 23-24 was ruined by the first half with the Havertz 8 experiment. Yeah. That was dark. But yeah, 22-23, I think he had done something that Arsene wasn't able to do, which was put Xhaka in his right position, limit all his flaws, and make all of his best qualities sparkle. And I do think that he was coaching the hell out of that team. Martinelli, 15 goals, non-penalty goals. Saka was looking brilliant. Jesus was great. Even though he wasn't scoring lots of goals, it didn't matter because he was making the team better. Odegaard, 15 goals. Xhaka no longer getting left for dead in the middle of the pitch. He was he fit so nicely into that side. Zinchenko coming into midfield. Two really good center backs, and Ben White, who was brilliant. So he was coaching the hell out of that team. But that team attacked and played free-flowing, attacking football, got near each other, scored lots of goals when they never looked like they weren't going to score. Their only issue is that they didn't have the depth. And when it came down to it and Arteta needed to make a smarter decision, he played Rob Holding. So he basically killed his only he killed his own experiment. And then yeah, the Havertz thing didn't work. Havertz being one of our most important players, and we're coming around to the point where people are like, he's the glue, and if we just had him, we'd win something, is why I can't live this way anymore, because that player should never be the most important player in this team. I'm so sorry. He's just not good enough. I've never changed my opinion on Havertz. I think we've just lowered our standards to meet where we're at now, where players like Saka and Odegaard are like dead now. So the next best is the kind of above average guy that's better than the worst striker that we've ever had at this club, named Gyökeres. It's, if Havertz was here, we'd win a league. Like, it's just nonsense. You can't play with fear. You can't play with fear. Think about conceding the counterattack. We need to play with freedom and encourage, like Patrick Vieira said. Oh, and another thing. The next time this fan base decides to jump onto Thierry Henry, please don't, because Thierry Henry has been totally complimentary of us this season, but he is absolutely correct in everything that he said. When he was saying that, Odegaard needs to do more, he does need to do more. Martinelli needs to, lift his head up and make decisions quicker. He needed to do that. Gyökeres needs to make better runs. He needed to do that. Those are right. But he's also like our legends, there's some that obviously some have an agenda, but I don't think all of them do. But when they say things like Arsenal need to have a better mentality, or they need to play more aggressively, or that people are like shiver me timbers and like, oh my gosh, how dare they? But they're right. They've actually won things. So maybe I don't want Thierry's X's and O's all the time because he wasn't a great coach, but he can at least see that we're missing key pieces, or at least there's something not there with the mentality. He can speak on that. There's a difference between speaking tactics and talking about what it takes as a player to win things and what's missing, so Thierry is right about a lot. I think Vieira is right too, that the mentality, especially they embarrassed themselves in front of our legends against United. They would have never played like that against Man United. That was one of the most important games. You would never find Arsenal playing timid against Man United, even if we lost, which we were in that era, we rarely did. Usually it was like a draw. But Vieira's right. They played so timidly, and they've been playing timidly for a while. So Thierry's not the evil, because he doesn't gain anything for being negative about Arsenal. There are people that gain things from being negative about Arsenal, but he doesn't gain anything. So he's just being honest. Let's be honest, even if AFC wins the title, what ops and pundits will emphasize is the negativity, our anti-football style of play, low number of points for winning team. If we win it, it'll just feel like a relief. It won't be like I won't feel good about it, but it'll feel more like a relief and like, thank God we won, because if we hadn't, this would have happened, less than happiness, because it's just been so torturous over the last 2 seasons. And I think, listen, I'm not saying that the football has to be tiki-taka, Barcelona, but it has been at a level that's so hard to watch that if we won it, I would just not want to see them for a while and just be like, whew, thank God we won it, because the alternative is so dark. It's more that than anything. So yeah, pretty sure we will evolve. If we win, I wouldn't give a fuck about what pundits say. Henry is not anti-Arteta. Felt he was at one point, but he made it very clear that he isn't. He tries to be objective. I agree with that 110%. To be fair, we were timid in 2005 FA Cup finals against United. We still won on penalties. Yeah, but that was different. I think we have to also remember that the club was like really changing during that time. So when I talk about we weren't timid, I'm talking about like I'm basically, like, talking about, like, the Invincibles in the team right before, the double winners, that group, you know, a little bit the end of George Graham, the beginning of Arson, before we got to the Emirates, like, those games were always very tight, there was always a lot of passion, you could tell both teams were really up for it. Only one team was really up for it at the Emirates earlier on in the season, and, that was United, so yeah. Um, let's see. I feel like a dinosaur. I really do because the only teams that I really care about that meant something to me were like the late 90s, early 2000s team. I thought as soon as we moved to the Emirates, something was lost. So I don't even really resonate with the Emirates era people, to be honest, because that football reaped like zero rewards, but a couple of FA Cups. So yeah, but I think a lot of us would prefer a better style, and I think even a better style would bring us closer to trophies anyway because we would score more goals and we have a good defense, and so, yeah, but I do feel like kind of a dinosaur because I don't even rate, like what was our like, our best team in the Emirates era was, like, the 2008 team before Eduardo broke his leg, so, yeah. I'm worried Arteta has removed anybody with a backbone. Years ago, I said, I don't care about the football because Wenger had beautiful football, but battered by rivals. However, I now believe we need to have a good brand of football regardless of winning and losing. Okay, there's 100 of you guys in here. Thank you for sticking around. But I want to ask about this because now that we've endured an era of, let's just say, bad football. I don't really want to play politics, and have to say, but we do score nice goals. You know what I mean? We don't, I won't say we play anti-football, but we play a pretty hard to watch, hard to enjoy version of football, right? I think people are being more honest about it now because we're not winning. Now, going forward, if we were to get a new manager, would it be a requirement for them to play a certain standard of football? Like, does it have to be mutually exclusive? I think almost, I won't say we settled, but I think we compromised a little bit in saying, like, well, we're better than we were, arson and later arson years. And now we're, finishing second and we're doing this and we're doing that. So the football, even though it's not great to watch, it's getting us closer to where we want to be. But if we don't win, is there something to be said about not accepting bad football because it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive? I think that's something, I mean, as a fan base, I get it. Like, we don't get to choose, but I do feel like I'm changing my opinion on that a little bit. I think I was kind of okay with, especially around 23, 24. I was like, yeah, the football doesn't have to be great as long as we win. But the last two seasons have gone so far, even beyond that, that I don't know if I would be able to do another manager that just does not even care about what it looks like or that it's enjoyable, because at the end of the day, it's hard to win stuff and we're not guaranteed to win anything, but at least I want to enjoy watching us play. And I just don't. So, what do you guys think about it? While you guys are answering that, let me just get the dogs some water. Hold on. Hold on. Where are you? Uh-uh. Nothing was wrong. You didn't need any water. You played me. Okay. Let's see. What do you guys think? Just tell the kids about Highbury Henri, and I feel so old, but I am old. Like, so like my version of the good Arsenal, my version of the good Arsenal doesn't, it's not really the Emirates era tiki-taka teams, because yeah, crazy. Even Diego Simeone plays better footy. I didn't like Wenger towards the end, but he established the standard that Arsenal play good football. If we do change managers, we aren't going to win immediately, so it has to be entertaining. That's interesting. Absolutely, it's a struggle to watch, especially because there's sufficient talent within the team to play exciting football. And, listen, if we don't win it, we'll lose it to City. And they don't play maybe the same brand of football as like PSG, and they're definitely not playing the best football that they've ever played, but they definitely don't play the football that we play. So it would immediately um undermine the idea that we need to play this style of football to win things. You saw Barcelona playing great football and they won La Liga. You see Bayern playing good football under company. You see PSG playing a good style of football, but it was like, but in the Premier League, you can't play that way. Well, even City, they may not be playing wide open, but they definitely are not defensively as solid as we are. But they do attack and they have number 10s in their team. They don't play out of possession, juga de position, torture ball. So, yeah, I do think a lot of people will want better football because we know it's not mutually exclusive. You don't have to play bad football to win things. So, yeah. And the thing is we did play good football under Mikel and he threw that away, and that's just so unfortunate. Arteta has turned them into robots and they're glitching. Um, I honestly don't think they'll replace him if he loses everything. I don't either, which is very unfortunate. That's why I really like Renee, despite her struggles this season. I see what she is trying. And in her interviews, she always emphasizes the brand of football is important to the fans. Yeah, and I think we have to set the standard too. And it's hard because I don't necessarily know how to change things because especially because I'm somebody that lives so far. I feel uncomfortable telling people that they need to go and protest and things like that because I'm not going to go do those things because I can't afford to go over there and just picket for months on end. But I do think we need to demand more. And, I don't think everything doesn't have to be so binary. It doesn't have to be we need to play the worst football ever to win, or we need to play really good football and lose. I think we can expect to play what we would consider now because of Arson, because he's such a big part of our history. Um, and he was here for so long that we are synonymous with a certain style of football. So we need to play good attacking football. We need to entertain, but we also need to win. And I think even if we don't win like the Premier League every year, if we're at least playing good football and we have players that are fun to watch and we are entertaining, I think people are a lot more accepting, but people are not going to accept playing this football and not winning. So yeah, I don't need good football, but it should be able to attack when we need. Good point. We have players right now to play good attacking football, but Arteta doesn't use them correctly. We do. I mean, Arteta, we could play a better brand of football right now if we chose to. Like, I don't think it's like it could never happen. It's a choice that we play this way. Jess, would you take Alonso? I don't want to play three at the back. I think his best system required a three at the back, and I wouldn't want to play that way. If we did not, because I think that if Carrick continues on the way that he's continuing on, they will hire him for the job. And then that'll potentially open up something with Luis Enrique. If he doesn't want to sign a new contract, that's the person that we need to go get. I'd rather see him fail at Arsenal and know that he's not the one for us than continuously pretend like good managers that have won things before could never do well at Arsenal. There's always this, yeah, but it's not necessarily the answer. We don't know for sure if he's an upgrade. Well, let's fucking see then. Let's see if he's an upgrade. How did this guy or the idea of him becoming bigger than the club? I just think people are too concerned about rivals and them being right about Arteta. And so, they've attached themselves to the manager rather than the club because, also if Arteta leaves them and we haven't won anything, then it's failed. You keep him around. You can keep this idea that we're working towards things. People love the project. And for a lot of fans, he's the first manager like they couldn't attach themselves to Emery, but Arteta, I don't know. He also like talks a good game. I think a lot of our fans love lip service and they love hearing things and they love theorizing about somebody and what they could be or whatever. But once you sack the manager, all that goes out of the window. All the theorizing about somebody goes out the window. So as somebody that wanted to give him time, because I feel like you have to give managers time to influence to get their players and to really show their influence on the style and all that kind of stuff. There is a level of insanity to keeping them around when it's obvious that they're not going to be able to get you over the line. Um, and that's kind of where I am with Mikel. Um, he's not the club. So Berta will get to bring in his own coach in if Mikel fumbles everything this season or if he just wins the Carabao. Blowing a 2-goal lead to a rock bottom worst team in the Premier League history, we don't deserve to win the league. It's safety football. Players nowadays are frightened to risk. They are overcoached. But here's the thing, though. I think you're correct. I think that players are afraid to attack, but football changes before the masses really notice. And because the best teams in the world last season played a certain brand of football, this Pep Arteta style thing that we've been influenced into feeling like is the only way to play now is gonna go away. Just like I was saying earlier that the traditional number 9 and number 10s are coming back. You know, when Shirky and Verts really settle into this league and have a couple years under their belt, they will be the best players in this league, and they're both number 10s. So I think seeing that and realizing that is that, yes, we've been playing the safety first football. That has kind of been the popular way of playing over the last couple of years, but that shit's going away. And if Arteta cannot get away from that, then he has to go because nobody's going to be playing this style next season. It's going to go away. It's kind of like, you know, like the Kardashians. The Kardashians all got BBLs and it was like something only the top girls could get, the celebrities could get because they had the influence, they had the money, and they had the contacts to get these BBLs. Then as it became popular, it started to drop down to the less famous, and now anybody could go get a BBL. If I wanted to get a BBL today, I could go get it like tomorrow. And I would only have to pay like $2,000 instead of like how much they were paying back in the day. So then now they're taking their booty implants out and now they're going back to flat booties like they had before. And so now that everybody's playing this, like, because everybody in the Premier League plays like a version of the Pep Arteta style, margins football, tall fullbacks, inversion, that kind of shit, and now Pep has already started moving away from that this season. He threw that shit in the trash. He said, okay, we won the treble. I can throw that shit in the trash and go to a different style. Arteta's still stuck here trying to perfect it, so I think, yes, it's safety football, and that's been really prevalent in the Premier League, and you've seen it across, different, but it's gone. The new managers that people are following, the companies, and even Cesc was talking about it. Everything is too robotic. As those managers go to the forefront of football, it's going to change, and Arteta is not going to be able to adapt. So, yeah, I think it's going to be gone. And if he's not going to be able to move with the times, then he's definitely got to go. And he's already shown the inability to change things at times. So I don't think he's still trying to perfect the style that hasn't even really won him anything. So yeah. Let's see. Do you think if we lose to Spurs, he will get sacked? Nope. These days, there are a lot of paid social media accounts and influencers to promote agendas. Most of our running is tracking back. It's killing the attackers. Why would you love Emery? All he did was F up 3 times in less than a year. I don't love Emery. I don't know. Did somebody in the chat say that they love Emery? It came late. It's hard to even listen to podcasts right now. I don't want to think about the damn team. I hear that. For sure. I think the players are scared to make a mistake and get scolded by Arteta. Arteta's style is tally ball. Okay. Kardashian analogy. That's the only way. That's because everything mimics real life. Like, it's the truth. It's the truth. When when it becomes popular and the masses are getting into it, like you see the Brentfords trying to do the same style as the better teams in the league and stuff, it's done. You need to evolve. You need to evolve, and they will. And Pep has already started to evolve. Um, you know, so which Love is Blind couple is Arteta? I don't know. We were cooked when Jess is talking about BBLs. Do you guys get the analogy or no? Do you guys get the analogy or no? It's true. It's true. Everybody is evolving away from that football, but Arteta's still trying to perfect it, and it's dead. Like, when we see next season, all we see is fullbacks bombing forward again and traditional 9s and 10s, and we're still playing center backs at fullback, no number 10, and no striker. We're gonna look so stupid. I don't even know what those are, and I don't care. Cesc has a higher ceiling as a manager than Mikel. I don't know. I don't know about the higher ceiling, but when the new managers that are going to be the next ones to kind of take over are saying that the style is dead and that it's too formulaic, it's too robotic. Like, and we all know that as well. Like, we know that. Um, we've gone too far. Do you think Arteta will let our players play with freedom if we finally get it over the line this season? Maybe, but he I don't know, because the idea would be kind of like it's just a theory, we don't really know because why would he completely change if that's what's worked for him? I don't know, but you would hope so. Um, but I almost feel like, it's like the idea that I'm going to learn how to be better with money once I make more money. If you're somebody that spends a lot, when you have no money, you keep spending it, you keep doing the wrong thing. But once I get more money, I'm going to be better at it. You're not. You need to start being better with money when you're broke. And then, you know what I mean? So I kind of feel like if Arteta's just thinking I'll start to be more free after, I think that's kind of BS. You need to have that now in order to get to where you want to go. You can't just start playing better football when you win because you need some of that to get over the line anyway. So it's just a theory, but I feel like it's flawed. I feel like that's what's keeping you from winning, so you need to start using it now. Forward-thinking manager is urgently needed. Yes, I get there are a bunch of teams with $2,000 garage BBLs. Exactly. You get what you picking up what I'm putting down. No, I actually believe this is who he is. Mikel would double down if we win the league. If after 6 years he hasn't learned, I doubt he'll change now. I blame KDB. I blame KDB, Holland, and Pep for this. They have done damage to us, forcing us to change our style of play. Listen, I blame Mikel. Mikel has like some sort of weird thing with Pep. The fact that, even this season we couldn't stomp them out at home just said everything I needed to say. So I don't blame KDB, Holland, and Pep for this. I think we have choices and we hired a manager that has some sort of mental wall when it comes to the best manager in the league, so it is what it is. He will double down on terrorism. Hey, Jess, best spot to watch the Derby in LA. Cosm. Go to Cosm, LA. It's in Inglewood. It's right by SoFi Stadium. You can watch it there. It's kind of like the Sphere in LA, or it's not LA, Las Vegas, but you can see everything. That's the best place to watch it. Play conservatively is actually putting us under pressure. Arteta still hasn't learned from the events of 23 through 25. City are actually King Von. We need these standards back at Chelsea. Arsenal #1, but fans still not happy. Sure. I don't know if it's necessarily that. but fair. Bonetta, okay, ain't changing his ways, unfortunately. Arteta is the let's wait and see manager. Usually waits for the damage to be done instead of addressing it proactively when the warning signs are there. Yeah, it kind of feels like essentially like at some point, like once Man City go above us, then you'll see Norgard playing and he'll be good and it'll piss us the fuck off. You know, Pep is the Debo to Arteta. Yeah, you can hear the saxophone. I don't know if you guys are on Instagram, but like that was like a trend. The saxophones that come when you're about to get killed, especially like in a black movie, the saxophone comes up. The saxophones are playing. They're playing now. Rice and Zubamendi are dead on their feet, while Norgard has only played 34 minutes in the league, for sure. There was some crazy shit that I saw. Let me pull it up because I just couldn't believe it. You know, you just can't believe something. You're like, this is just crazy. So the Wolves games was the sixth time that Martinelli and Gyökeres have started together in the Premier League. In those games, they've combined for 0 goals and 0 assists. Martinelli is 4 for 15 on crosses, and Gyökeres is yet to have a shot on target. Also, Gyökeres has only had 1 shot on target against teams that are not in the relegation zone. I saw that earlier too. And it was like some shitty ass header off of a set piece. The one that was against a team outside of like the relegation zone or in the top 10 or something like that. Let me find it. I was like, what the fuck? His only shot on target against a top 10 team. Sorry. His only shot, Gyökeres, against a top 10 team was against Newcastle from a free kick where he headed it straight to the goalkeeper. That's fucking crazy, actually. Martinelli was dispossessed 7 times versus Wolves. No player has ever been dispossessed more in a single Premier League match this season. Arsenal's 58 points is the fewest the Premier League leaders have had after 27 games since Leicester in 2015-2016. And like I said earlier, we're only 4 points better off at this point last season. Premier League minutes. Jurrien Timber, 2,182 minutes. Ben White, 411. Martin Zubamendi, 2,272 minutes. Norgard, 32. The one that shocked me the most was Arsenal having 49% possession and 1 shot on target in the second half, and they played 163 accurate passes compared to 180 from Wolves. Stark. I mean, some of those don't even feel real. They don't even feel real. They don't feel real. As an Arteta critic, I actually think he'd open up a bit if we won the Premier League. Anfield and Southampton 22-23 scarred him. 23-24 was the perfect balance, to be fair, but he fucked up versus Villa. Can only blame himself. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. I'll be honest. I don't even think it was Anfield that killed him. I think actually City, and it was City and Southampton. I think Anfield going there and drawing 2-2 is a decent result. Yes, we kind of gave up things in the second half, but Southampton at home, chucking the ball into the back of your own net is fucking insane. And then going to City and getting beat, they beat the brakes off of us. It was like the easiest win for them. I think that was scarred him the most. But yeah, the events of 22-23 spawned a new Arteta that I do not like. And in 23-24, I would actually say that the damage was done when he persisted with Kai Havertz in midfield, because we lost like 3 games in a row. We did the triple that we always do, to teams like Fulham. We went away to Fulham, we scored early, and Nketiah scored, and we still found a way to lose to Fulham by 2-1, and that was like the third of a 3-game period where we didn't win any games, and then we went to Dubai. And I think you have to say that if we needed to win every single game in the second half of the season to win the league, then the damage was done in the first half of that season. But I agree with you that that was the perfect balance. And somehow you know what it was? It was that summer window where we knew we needed new forwards, and we ended up with Calafiori and Marino. And then the injuries came. You know, Odegaard starts getting injured. Saka starts getting injured. Ben White is injured, and then so your key players that were kind of holding up your attack, because again, our whole attack was going through that side. It was Saka, Odegaard, and Ben White. And then he started to lose that. And then things just started to just deflate from there. So, yeah, the summer window of after 23-24 really hurt us. And then he just got real negative from there. So thank you for your super chat, Takun. Takun says, how far can we go in the Champions League? We can try 4. I mean, essentially, if we start to see that we're not going to win the Premier League, we can start focusing everything on the Champions League. I think at the very least, they need to really focus on, if we go behind in the Premier League, they need to put everything into the Carabao Cup and the Champions League. If we go behind, we won't catch them. I think even now we're fucked, so, well, I don't think we're going to be able to win every single competition anyway. So, I mean, I know people will do it and it'll cringe, but if it becomes obvious that we're not going to win the league, people will say, well, our best chance is the Champions League, but really we will need to focus on it. And without having to focus on the league anymore, we'll be able to focus on it. But, I don't know. I don't know how far we can go, because we got to the semis last year, and you can say that it was because we didn't have Thomas Partey, but that didn't, it could have been, but it could have just been, our attack was ass. So I don't know. We could win it. We could. I think we could win the Champions League, but a lot of things would have to go our way, and we'd have to figure out a way to avoid all the Premier League teams, which is hard. Arsenal what did I do there? Arsenal cannot win the league, but you are recommending the UCL. That's unreal. Yeah, because, the reality is you have to be the best team in the league to win the league, but you don't have to be the best team in the world to win the Champions League. So, yeah, if you get lucky and the draws go your way, you could win the Champions League, especially if you're not focusing on the Premier League. So we could still win the league. I just don't think we will. So, listening is really important, because we could still win the league right now. I just don't think we will, because our mental capacity it's left us. It just has. But yeah, it's always about luck in the cups, because you don't have to be the best team in the world to win the Champions League, but you do need to be the best team in the league to win over a 38-game period. And right now, we're not looking like the best team in the league, are we? So you could have shown somebody that's never watched football in their life the game that we played against Wolves, and they would not have been able to clock that we were the better team. So there you go. Arsenal women was not the best team around, but they won the Champions League. Exactly. I feel like that's pretty simple to understand, but people don't listen for understanding when they're just trying to be pedantic. Of course, we would still have to be much better than what we are right now to win the Champions League. Absolutely. We'd have to get lucky as well. Um, so yeah, reality is if we still win top of the best 2 leagues, we still in 4 tournaments, we got this. You know what? It's funny because let's I'll be a little positive for a second. If we turned around and looked like our normal selves against Spurs, I think people would start to believe again. I think the problem is that we've been in 4 tournaments and the best in the Champions League for a while now. And when we were, when we beat Sunderland and when we beat Leeds, when Kai Havertz came back, we felt like we could do it. It wasn't until we drew to Brentford and Wolves and the performances in particular that nothing has really changed that much, like except for like obviously now City have a game in hand on us. But if their performances just picked up, everybody would believe again. We're gullible. This fan base wants to get gassed about it. So if they just played well against Tottenham and beat them and then beat Chelsea at home, we'd be right back on track. But I don't know who's going to show up on Sunday. So until then, it's not giving fire emojis for me. It's giving, hide behind the hands emojis right now, But I hear you. I don't think we're beating both Chelsea and Spurs, maybe beat one and draw the other. I mean, the thing is now you have 2 teams that out of everyone will want more than anyone for us not to win this league with nothing really to play for, especially Spurs. Spurs don't have anything to play for. They have all their players out, but their fans will basically forgive them for all their sins if they beat us. So, and they're shameless. And so they will probably play the hardest they've ever played in their whole entire lives against us. They will. While Newcastle bend over for City. They're not going to beat City. They won't take any points off of City. They won't. And then Chelsea as well, because we're their cup final. They'll need to get the lick back because they turned up to the Emirates and did nothing the other day. So yeah, it's going to be hard, but if you win those 2 games, that will show that you're still very much so in it. But if you drop any points in either one of those games, it's over. You'll have to go to the Etihad and win. So, yeah. Going all out in the next 5 games and winning 4 and losing 1 is better than winning 2 and drawing 3. Do the math, Arteta. Yeah, I mean, but even like this thing, Declan was like, Saka told me we cannot lose to Spurs. And I'm like, it's not even you can't lose to them. You have to win. This can't lose thing, they love a draw. They love a draw. They love a draw because a draw gives them a false sense of security that, well, we didn't lose, because losing it was way worse to them than it's like a loss would kill them, but the idea of going for a win is worse. Like it's the psychological thing that's going on with them is like going for a win is so much scarier than just settling for the draw. And they settle for draws so often. But yeah, saying, oh, we can just not lose to Spurs, you actually need to beat them. So margin gets smaller if we don't beat both Spurs and Chelsea. It's been a Jekyll and Hyde season, and there's still time to show a good run. It's the Chelsea game I'm looking at to show we are back. Spurs are scary only because of the Wolves' performance. They genuinely have like no players available. They're 8 up. They have Igor Tudor as their coach right now. If you guys can't beat them, I just, there's just no hope. But I'm sure that Arteta will have at least one, if not both, of Kai Havertz and Odegaard. And no matter what you think about Odegaard, we do not play better without him. The Wolves showed that, So I'd be happy to. Like, Arteta, is it impossible to run that old thing back? Put White and Odegaard and Saka out there and see if we can at least get something resembling an attack going, because I can't live this way. The left-hand side, it is what it is. If it halfway functions, I'm happy. because it's been bad for 2 years. But the right hand side being dead is killing us. Like, I know that a lot of people want to see both Eze and Saka, and I would love to see Eze on the left hand side, but I feel like the opportunity to do that was Wolves. Now you need to go to something that we know works, or at least it worked before. If Kai's available, you have to start him. Saka, you got to start White. You have got to drop Timber. I am so sorry. And I love Timber down. I would defend him with my life. But Spurs don't have shit going on that left-hand side for us not to be able to play Ben White. I need combinations that work. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We must, so also without Odegaard, the buildup is ass, so I don't know. It's don't play him, don't play Odegaard, and then you can't build up or anything. But, is it impossible to play him and Eze together, or at least have Eze at left wing? Trossard's not playing well. Martinelli's not good enough to start. Is it impossible to play Eze at left wing? Because you could play Hincapié on that side. And then again, if you're scared that Eze's not going to track back, at least you have your better defender. And then you have balance because Hincapié and White is more balanced than Timber and Hincapié or Calafiori and White. So you could do it. In fact, people are asking me what would be my starting 11, assuming that both Kai Havertz and Odegaard would be back because we're going to rush them the fuck back. Of course we are. I'd play Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Hincapié. I play Rice and Norgard and Odegaard. And I would play Eze on the left, Kai in the middle, and Saka on the right. That's what I would do. So our players need to show more pride and courage. Even Man United showed their pride against us at the Emirates and they beat us. They can't even access pride and courage because they're so scared. When, it's like you're paralyzed with fear. When people talk about how you're paralyzed with fear, like I've had times in my life where I was so nervous that I couldn't even show what I could do because I was too scared. Case in point, one of my first jobs that I had where I had to interview a player, it was even like it was remote. Like the player was on, like it was digital, so I was in studio and they were at home and I was so scared that I didn't show any of my personality. I could barely read the questions. I was so scared. I was sweating. I was paralyzed with fear. So I couldn't get locked into how excited I was or how good I am at my job or anything because I was paralyzed with fear. Now, fast forward to when I did like my interview with Alexia Putellas, I was relaxed and I wasn't scared. And so I could access like my personality. I could show what I know. I could, relax and just enjoy it. They're paralyzed with fear. When you're paralyzed with fear, you can't get into the courage and the pride and your talent because fear is one of the strongest emotions because it paralyzes you. It really does. They're scared. Jess, I like Odie. I think at his best, he needs to start to be at our peak. For now, though, can you see why some Arsenal fans are calling for him to be benched? I can. But then when you watch us play against Wolves, it wipes that away, which has always been my point, is that even though Odegaard's not playing well, when we play without him, we're also bad. Because he's come off plenty of times at like the 55th minute, and players like Eze have come on and nothing has gotten better. So at the very least, something that we know works and our build-up play is better with him. Yes, he needs to play much better. But when you watch the Wolves game, you can't keep what he needs to be benched. Well, there's no other option. We're worse without him. We're worse without him. We are not better without Odegaard. I saw people saying we're better without Saka. You guys are smoking high grade. We're not. There's no version of what we've done in the last 2 years that is better without Saka or Odegaard or any of the players that were a part of our better team. I'm talking about running that old thing back. The whole thing back. Get White out there with Saka and Odegaard and see if we can at least rehabilitate that right-hand side because I know that at least works. It's not perfect, but I don't think you can watch another game with Eze ghosting. It's worse. It's worse. It just is. Like, that's what I'm saying. If you guys had another option that was way better, then let's do that. And I'm sorry, but Kai Havertz needs to play up front because Gyökeres is not even getting shots. So he needs to come off of the bench. So yes, I get it that people just hate Odegaard so much, but Eze hasn't worked out anywhere near enough for you guys to feel so confident to say that we're better without him, especially after what we saw against Wolves. Because he didn't play that game, and that was the worst game that we played this season by far. So yeah, I'm running that old thing back. And of course, I would start Eze, but I would start him at left wing. I would. I would start him at left wing because both Trossard and Martinelli look horrendous. So start him at left wing and Capier behind him, a good solid defender. Ain't nothing Spurs got going on where we need to be so scared that we can't play at least one attack-minded fullback. You know, play White from the beginning. If we need to get more defensive, we can. But going out there with both Hincapié and Timber, it's giving off scared. You know, Zubamendi is dead on his feet. Play Norgard. You don't think he can play at Spurs Stadium? Just play him. You know, let him play the deeper role. Let Rice run forward a little bit, double eights with Odegaard. He can still slide into the double pivot and play. And even having, you know, Rice on that side could help, you know, help Eze. Because the thing about playing Eze is you have to allow him to have some freedom. And he's not good defensively. So don't make him defend. Don't make him defend. Make Rice defend that spot. Make him defend that space. So you have Hincapié and Rice there. So Eze can just go forward. You know, but Arteta's already decided he's not going to play Eze left wing. So I don't know if he'll do it. But yeah. Madueke, Martinelli, you guys come off the bench, you know, because that's your better option. You could play Kai and Gyökeres, but I need more than that. I'm so sorry. And Gyökeres might be better off the bench too. So yeah, you could do that too. But, you know, I'm running that old thing back. You know, I don't think it would be a bad thing to get all your better players out there together. Gyökeres and Kai, it's not like it super worked because Kai was just giving the ball to Gyökeres all these times. It was just Kai was out there and he helps us. I think Kai could be good even without Gyökeres. So, you know, that's kind of how I feel. I'm not trying to see Gyökeres get bullied by Van de Ven. I'm sorry. As I got an assist to Gyökeres from left wing in his first game, Martinelli has none. Yeah, he does have none. Yeah, Kai had 10 in the Leeds game, but our best version still is Kai up front. I don't know what the obsession is with, and if Odegaard is not there, I can understand wanting Kai in the 10, but immediately if I have to pick a duo and I have to think if I want to actually play well, I'd prefer Kai and Odegaard to Kai and Gyökeres. I don't think Gyökeres adds very much. I think it's more just the fact that Kai is in there than Kai and Gyökeres are playing so well together. So yeah, I'm kind of tired of watching Gyökeres, I'll be real, but that's just me. The Anfield 2022-2023 was the prototype of the current Arsenal. We held on for dear life in the whole second half, and we conceded late, and the collapse started there. I did not have the biggest problem with that performance. I thought it was sad that we conceded those 2 goals, but that was probably one of the only times we've ever went to Anfield and played. So I hear it. Odegaard is never a good jest. It's been 2 seasons and he's now been mid. That doesn't stop you guys from wanting Martinelli to play. Listen, if your other options are not good enough, you guys can't keep saying don't play Odegaard when we're worse without him. I'm sorry. Like, we're slim pickings. Nobody's working. Nobody's in form. No one. The only person that's kind of in form are like Norgard and Kai Havertz. But nobody's playing good enough to keep him out of the team. So, Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's irrelevant at this point. It's irrelevant. So, yeah, if you guys would prefer not to have it, that's fine. But I don't like the way we look when he doesn't play because we can't get the ball up the pitch. As a ghosts most games. So unless there's a better option, I'm bored of that now. Odegaard is a must. See my comment above. I read your comment above. That Anfield game was like the final 20 minutes of John Wick 4 survival mode. It was crazy. It really was. But at least that was a more respectable performance than what we've done at Anfield since then, which is basically try to keep them from scoring and go for a draw. Um, let's see. What is Eze worse at than Odegaard besides leading the press? My thing is Norgard should have played versus Wolves. He's our most progressive midfielder. He's worse at pressing. He doesn't get on the ball. He doesn't get involved in buildup, which is one of the bigger issues why we can't get the ball off the pitch. He doesn't find Saka. So not finding Saka alone means that we're limiting ourselves going forward. And making mistakes while trying to do things is always better than doing nothing. So there's just not really anything that Eze has done to deserve to just keep getting the spot. Like, I think he probably should have started because against Wolves because there really wasn't anybody else. And Arteta moving Saka and then expecting Eze to come off the bench and do something is cool. But I think that they should play together. But Arsenal fans can only like one person at a time. And they can never see the value in having more of their good players playing together at once. And there's no good version of Arsenal over the last couple of seasons that has not included him. Hasn't included Saka, hasn't included Odegaard. There's just nothing that Eze has done that would make me feel like against Spurs, except for, he did well against Spurs at home, but do I think that's going to translate now? Maybe not, so why can't they be out there together? I think more than anything, people want so badly for it to just be one versus the other, but it wouldn't be that bad for them to play together. And there's just no version of Arsenal that has been good without him, so yeah. When people get scapegoat, they don't let go. Odegaard playing well is Arsenal at its peak. If we could kill teams early instead of going 1-0 up and then get complacent, we would win more games. Odegaard involved in the press and do nothing in the final third. I mean, listen, it's, again, none of our attackers are playing well. So you can cherry pick him, but he didn't play against Wolves. And that was by far our worst performance. So it's clearly not him. It's clearly not him. Because if it was, then they would have just played amazing against Wolves and won that game. So in the end of the day, especially a team that doesn't create a lot of chances, which it's interesting to say, like, when people say that his press means nothing, because not only does it give the other team the ability to kind of step onto us and push us back into our half, but our team doesn't create a lot of chances. So pressing is a good opportunity. And against Brentford, he pressed them into a mistake, got the ball, cut in, gave it to Rice, and Rice decided not to shoot and gave it to Martinelli or Trossard, and then they kicked it wide. So he did press, and he did give it to them in the final third. And the player that's meant to be the big captain and supposed to be taking over for Odegaard, because Odegaard's a terrible captain, passed responsibility off to somebody else when he was right in front of the goal. So there's just too many examples of the team playing just as bad with and without him. So if nobody's better, then I'm going to go for what I know. So I'm probably going to go with what I know works at the end of the day. So yeah, pressing forces mistakes. It's not only about taking the ball. I agree. Eze and Odie, both poor, but Eze has had moments unlike Odie this season. Perhaps I've forgotten them. Help me remind if so. I mean, He basically was our best player against Aston Villa. I think he scored against Brighton, which was the opening goal in that game. Um, he definitely hasn't had as many moments as Eze, but almost all of Eze's moments came in one game. So, yeah. And if you count Wigan, that's fine. I can understand, but I mean it's League One. So, yeah. And I think ultimately, like, what are moments if Odegaard, this is why I feel like they should play together, and people are so focused on it having to be one or the other. Odegaard can do the things that Eze doesn't do because neither one of Rice or Zubamendi seems to be able to figure out how to get the ball to Eze. And our whole buildup falls apart when you don't have somebody like Odegaard who's responsible on the ball that can get it from the center backs and from the goalkeeper and get us up the pitch. The problem is Odegaard can't do what Eze does. So they kind of would complement each other really well, which is why I never really understand why it has to be one or the other. The only reason why it's one or the other is because I think fans are player FC and they can't like both players at once. They have to hate one. One has to be the worst player in the world and one has to be the best player in the world. And that's just not the case with either one. They've both been poor in their own ways, but having moments in one game and basically ghosting most games and then not having any moments, but being kind of fundamental to our buildup, I feel like that would be obvious that we should probably be playing them together. But, you know, it'll also relieve Eze from his defensive responsibilities to play out wide. So I'd be trying to get both of them into the team, especially because I'm sorry, but you need to be able to get the ball to Saka. Our right-hand side is fundamental to us doing anything. And it only really worked with those three players. So yeah, I would not mind seeing both of them together. I think it never seeing them together is hurting us. And I don't think either player is that much better than the other right now. So um yeah, but I think Eze gets a lot of benefit of the doubt because people thought for sure he was just going to take Odegaard's spot and he would just run away with it, but it hasn't worked out. So, um, let's see. Eze should have started versus Wolves, but that scuff shot at the end, bruh, can't defend that, not gonna lie. But Odegaard has been so bad. Our XG drastically went down against flipping Karat. Yeah, I can understand that. But it's just Karat at the end of the day. So, and we won that game and the game was pretty much over. So, and is our XG so much better when he doesn't play in Premier League games? Because we didn't even look like scoring against Brentford, an actual Premier League level side, until he came out on the pitch. So, what is our XG going down against one of the worst teams in the Champions League? Is that more important than Eze coming off and us getting better with Odegaard? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, who gives a fuck about Karat? I could have played in that game and we probably would have won. You know, people in the chat can't blame one player. All of our attackers, including Odegaard, regressed this season. I agree. Why can't any of our players shoot beyond the 18 yards? I don't know. That said, Odegaard, Aiden, Eze 10 cooked versus Newcastle away. That kickstarted our title charge. So it's not like Odegaard has been completely shit. I don't know why Arteta hasn't done that more. Also, Odegaard's actually been injured. So I think it's weird that only some players that have been injured get the benefit of the doubt when they come back. And they never, it's like he's just supposed to be perfect after having multiple injuries. Very strange. But I would like to see both of them together. As a winning goal in Palace home when Palace is in good form. Yeah, I mean, he scored that goal. That was a long time ago, so I don't know. We can keep playing Eze in the 10, but I wouldn't. I'd probably try to sneak some of our better players in, and maybe Rice, Zubamendi, or maybe Rice, Odegaard, and Eze is a thing too. But it's not working with Zubamendi, Rice, and Eze. Something's missing there. And I think because we don't have somebody that can actually get us up the pitch, our buildup suffers so much without Odegaard, so I don't know. Um, I would put I would play them both together. Sometimes it's not about either or. So everything is systematic with Arteta. We are conditioned that the left aid is important. It's also taboo to play a double pivot so that the attackers can do what they do best. I mean, the best that Eze looked in this team at the 10 was when we played a true double pivot. I don't know if we've been doing that the same, but Arteta tends to play kind of like 2 8s and a 6. I've always kind of felt like Rice has been misprofiled at left 8, but he's been playing deeper now. So I don't know. It's a weird one, but he is very systematic. I think we could change things up. Like I said, I would start with like Norgard and Rice and Odegaard so that our buildup doesn't suffer. Get Eze out on left wing. I think that's kind of where he's played best for us anyway, or he's been most useful because he doesn't have to defend as much. Kai, if he's fit, and Saka, and White for sure. Get the right-hand side clicking again, and see what we can do from there. But I'm not going to lie. I'm done with Gyökeres. I think Kai coming out there and playing well has made people think that they have to play together. And I just think Gyökeres is kind of a life sucker out there. He doesn't get any shots. He can barely run. I'd prefer to see Kai in the 9, but that would just be me. I don't think Zubi as the 6 and Rice as the 8 anymore. They both go up and down. We're playing a double pivot now. Yes, we played against Newcastle away in this season with the double pivot and Eze in the 10. I think that's the best he's looked in the 10, is if both of them stay back and he gets the space in the 9. But I don't really know anymore. It's just all been cobbled. We're playing a double pivot now. Gyökeres, Eze, Kai, Saka should be our starting front line. I'm totally done with the Gyökeres thing. What do you think of the rumors Odie leaving in the summer? Jordan and Shroy from Loose Cannons believe he'd leave. I haven't seen a single reliable source. I saw somebody named Top Skills, and then that guy that got that one cosign from Ornstein. Unless it's somebody reliable, I'm just not even really thinking that right now. If he leaves, fair enough. If he stays, fair enough. It is what it is. But I think also people don't realize that these less credible sources tell you what you want to hear. They said that Martinelli was gone this past summer and he's still here. So unless it's Ornstein or Charles Watts or somebody like that, and none of them have really co-signed that, I'm just going to kind of leave that where it is. I feel like the fans don't like Odegaard, so let's put out a rumor that he's going to leave and there's been a fallout. Top Skills and that the KFC guy. And also, to be honest, like, a lot of people will probably leave this coming summer, and Odegaard may be one of them. I would also consider letting Kai go. Jesus should go. Martinelli should probably go. So we'll have a big change, but if Arteta's still here, it won't matter. So I'm less concerned about the players going and more concerned about whether or not the manager is still going to be here. Gyökeres isn't even producing from through balls, which is his bread and butter. I don't know why people are so desperate for Gyökeres to continue to play. He's not doing anything. If opponents are celebrating Gyökeres starting, it's a poor look. That's what I'm saying. I don't think Zubi as a 6. Oh no, I heard that. Let's see. And he does deserve criticism, and he's been criticized. But the idea that we can just keep playing the way that we're playing now and we're just going to get so much better, it hasn't landed. so he's gotten his criticism. But then I would ask you why, when other people are wearing the armband, we don't look any better. Gabrielle wore the armband against Brentford, by the way, and dropped a stinker. So I get it that he's the captain, but even the guys that you guys are saying that should be wearing the captain's armband look really funny in the light when we're under pressure. So yeah, we've kicked Odegaard, but nothing gets better even when he's not out there. Fundamentally, these players all have issues with pressure. So you could change the armband and give it to somebody else, and that's fine. If Odegaard leaves, then he leaves. That's it is what it is. A lot of players have left this club. But if you think all the answers will be solved if you give Rice the armband and keep Arteta and Odegaard leaves, you're smoking crack. Like, you need to change more than that. Odegaard in the 8, I wouldn't mind seeing him more in the 8 than the 10, to be honest. Unfortunately, since Villa, Eze's looked shook. How long are Odegaard and Kai out for again? They said that they might be back. If they're back, I'd have them both in. When's the last time we've seen Kai in the 9, Odegaard in the 10, or in right 8, Saka on right wing? We haven't seen it like very much at all this season. So I'd be interested to see that with Eze on the left. I don't think Gyökeres is a part of our best front four. I don't. This is why I'm worried, because even if the women's team need a rebuild, lots to do in the summer, I don't trust the club to address it, to be both. Yeah, no, I hear that. It's not a get rid of one player and everything just goes together. Even for the women's team, there needs to be a lot done in both teams. So we'll see how they address it. I can't lie, something maybe happened behind the scenes. Odegaard doesn't have the joy when I see him playing. Who does have joy, though? Name a player right now in our team that's playing with joy. Anyone? Anybody look like they're having a good time? It's not just Odegaard. Nobody's playing with joy. Nobody is happy to be in this title race right now. So I think with Odegaard, it's just more he's been in and out with those injuries and he can't seem to grapple any form. And I think he's really low on confidence. So, but who is confident? Who is happy? Like, literally no one. What does Arteta tell them at halftime? We go up. In second half, we look petrified. Saka looked good in the 10 this week before getting injured again. It's Odegaard's fault for Brentford equalizer. He is soft. Yeah, well, whose fault was it for Wolves equalizer? Brentford is over. We could have still beaten Wolves and been 7 points clear. So you guys can do the Odegaard thing all you want, but he didn't play against Wolves and the teams played worse. So yeah, the captain thing is so BS. I don't know how it was gotten this much traction. I think fans are very they want the captain to be for them. They want the captain to be for them. If they don't see somebody yelling and shouting, they don't feel like anybody is leading. But even when Odegaard hasn't been captain, he hasn't been captain a lot of times this season because he hasn't played. We've still dropped lots of points, so I think they need to see a typical English captain to feel like they have a captain out there. But the captain is not for the fans. The captain is for the other players. Our captain carries out orders from the manager. And I've always said that a real man and a real leader doesn't wait till they have the armband to start leading. They act like Declan Rice and Gabrielle can't lead without an armband. Like their mouths are zip closed. It's the captaincy is just not, to me, it's like never been that deep. I've seen many people wear that armband over the years that have not exemplified Tony Adams. So yeah, if you're a leader, you'll step up. It's just not that deep to me. I'm more concerned about just individual performances across the board. And I think Odegaard has not been good enough just as a player in general, but as a captain, it's like Other people have worn it this season, and we still drop points. So it's not like it's just a fix-all to give the captaincy to someone else, and everything is just gonna be better. I don't think it's that deep, but I think most people need to see somebody that they deem a better captain. It's to me, it's more vanity than anything, and I think with Odegaard, he also doesn't exemplify the typical manly guy either, because he's kinda lightweight, he's not yelly, shouty, spitty kinda guy, and that's a lot of men, especially because like, men the football is a very, like it's a male-centric sport, it's very masculine sport. The captain has to be the most masculine person out there too, and I think that hurts Odegaard too, but yeah, just give the captaincy to Declan Rice. Just do it. If you do it, Odegaard leaves, I expect everything to just but I know it won't. I know it won't. We'll be sitting here talking about, I don't know why we can't win the league. Because it's not because the captain is Odegaard. That's not the reason why we're not winning the league. Declan Rice is a proper geezer, expressive on the pitch. That's why everyone is enamored with him as captain. And we should just switch it. Because again, before it was we couldn't win the league because Arteta didn't get attackers. He got attackers, and now we're still not winning the league. Now it's we need to change the captaincy. It's a very obvious reason why we're not winning the league. And it doesn't have anything to do with who's wearing the fucking captain's armband. After the Jesus stinker and finding Wolves players to get back at stuff from 2 years, I want him starting after that Jesus stinker, then finding Wolves players to get back at stuff from 2 years ago, I don't want him starting either, to be honest. At least Glock 14 is clinical when he gets into shooting positions. Our best number 9 is Kai Havertz, and when he comes back, he needs to play in the 9. Having Gyökeres and Jesus are both bad in their own ways, and I'm surprised at how many people still want Gyökeres starting. I don't get it. I know. People wanted Xhaka gone for a long time, but nothing haven't changed much. Even if you get better player than Odegaard, nothing will change when everything around him doesn't change. Yeah. Let's see. What I want is to trash Spurs and put this Wolves mess behind us. That's what I want. Couldn't care less who starts. Just get the job done and we can breathe a bit. I feel bad for Odegaard and Saka. Arteta can't platform our attackers. We don't have one of the attackers to score who scored more than 10 goals. I don't see how we do this without one of our better players getting on a heater, and I don't see any of the new players being better than any of the old players. Like, I know that sounds like maybe nostalgic, but I'd prefer to see if I can get that old thing back than trying to make the new players work. Meaning, I'd rather try to see if I could get something going with like White and Saka and Odegaard rather than forcing Gyökeres and Eze still. Because I don't know what's going on with them. But with the injuries, you're going to have to use Gyökeres, and you're going to have to figure out things with Eze too. So it's a tough position to be in. And I think that's why Arteta kind of goes back to Saka and Odegaard, but they're not in the best of form. So I don't know, do you try to force them into form and hope that they can stay fit, or do you try to utilize Gyökeres and Eze? I don't know. I have no idea. If we lose, which I doubt, do we believe Josh actually moves on Arteta? Managers aren't fired for performances. It's bad relationships. Arteta is cozy with Josh. I don't think he'll go if he goes trophyless. I don't. I really don't. I would want him to go, but he won't. So I have nothing against Rice, but he also with Zubamindi doesn't play very well, especially against Big Six teams. I'll say one thing for sure is that a good point was made, I think, on the Arsenal Vision podcast is that you can play well and still be the problem. And I think individually, Rice still does a little good things. And I think he's had a pretty good season up until around like maybe like the United game. I'm sorry, but we need our midfield to control games better. The fact that the game just goes completely haywire whenever we score a goal has a lot to do with the midfield because they get outplayed by so many bad midfields. All they run past us and they also keep the ball better than us. So if you can't give Zubamindi and Rice the ball and keep it, and them kind of control games for us, that's why we lose a lot of that control. So, yes, Rice can do all the runs and, win the ball in the box as he wants to. But one of our biggest things is like, we need you to put your foot on the ball and control the game. And you're not doing that. And I think a bigger culprit of that is probably Zubamindi. So, yeah, I think where, you know, of course you can yell and shout and, intercept the ball and do that kind of stuff and score the odd goal here and there too. But one of their bigger problems is they don't control games well enough, especially when we're under pressure. And sometimes you just need your midfielders to put their foot on the ball and slow the game down a little bit, find your attackers, support them so they can give you the ball back and just pop it around. We don't have the ability to do that. And if you had to ask somebody which department is most responsible for that, you wouldn't say the attack, you wouldn't say the defense, you'd say it's the midfield. So Rice and Zubamindi individually have done great things this season. I think in particular, the two of them have been pretty good in the attack, supporting the attack and getting goals. But when it comes down to it, we need our midfielders to control the game. And they don't control the game. They have a hard time building up, especially without Odegaard, somebody that's going to receive the ball off of the defenders and get us up. They don't necessarily do a lot of passing between the lines, especially Zubamindi. His passing has gotten very risk averse as of late. He doesn't receive the ball on the half turn. Those are things that we've seen him be able to do, is kind of dribble up. And besides popping up with goals, I just think he needs to do a little bit more. But yeah, when you're struggling and the other team is coming at you, the best way to keep the other team from scoring against you is keeping the ball. And they will not keep the ball, hoofing it, kicking it out of bounds, clanging off your shin guard, kicking it long to nobody. That's a bigger problem than pretty much most of our other issues, is because we do go ahead in some games and we do keep the chances low, but it's all won and lost in the midfield, as cliche as that is. And Rice and Zubamindi are good players in their own right, but they're not doing their main job. They need to control the ball. They need to put their foot on the ball. I'm sorry. They haven't done enough of that. If they're not responsible for that, then who is? So, yeah. I think Arteta will walk away himself if we don't win the Premier League. That's the only way that we'll be free. Someone who watches La Liga said before that Zubamindi struggles with press resistance and has been evidence, especially in the bigger games. You know what the thing is to me, like with Zubamindi, it's not so much about lack of press resistance. It's the fact that there's so much more that he can do on the ball and he's not showing that. A lot of players are not press resistant. And when you get pressed, sometimes you make mistakes. I can stomach the mistake that he made against Spurs and the mistake that he made against United. My problem with him is when he does get on the ball, it's very simple. And he's not the only player doing it. But Zubamindi can do a lot more on the ball than what he's showing. And so he's going to get bullied in games. He's smaller. So I've already accepted when we play against those bigger, stronger midfields, there may be times where he loses those battles. But I don't think I can accept being this timid on the ball. When you get it, you look around, pass it sideways, or make a bad pass. no punching it between the lines, no creative passing. You're not doing any passing and moving anymore. You're not receiving it on the half term. You're not doing anything, So, um, for me, I'd rather see the players make mistakes trying to do things than not doing things at all. Um, and that's my problem with Zuby. And then when games get hard, I feel like we don't see him like holding on to the ball enough, or at least putting his foot on it and controlling the narrative around the game. Is this therapy, or are we just already accepted into the insane asylum? Being an Arsenal fan is an insane asylum. Be free, Jess. Is Arteta holding us hostage, or are we his slaves? Amistad, Arsenal, give us free. You even let, okay, maybe not be free, but right now I feel like I would like to be free. But listen, if they play well against Spurs and then Chelsea, and then maybe I'll believe again, but it does, the football it does feel a little bit like, a little bit torturous. I'm not going to lie. Jorginho was very good with the ball. I'm sorry, but that period of time where our midfield was Jorginho, Rice, and Odegaard, and we were emptying out stadiums, was the best version of Arsenal, because the balance was just perfect. Jorginho was doing so many good things. And it's not that Zuby can't do some of those things. He's not as good of a passer as Jorginho, but he's not doing it. There was even like a clip of Saka between the lines against Wolves, and even Saliba gets the ball, and instead of punching that ball in between the two players to Saka, he tippy tap, passes it backwards. All of our players are doing it. But if there's anybody that I cannot accept that from, is midfield. Midfielders, you have to control the narrative of the game, and you have to be brave on the ball. I expect Saliba and Gabriel to take the easy route every once in a while. They're center backs, so, but funny enough, Zuby loses some of the battles on the ball, but he wins them off the ball. I would have thought the otherwise when he joined. And I know what you mean. I was a bit over the top there. All right, guys. We did the long 3-hour stream. I promised, and we got it done. So, yeah, but hopefully we covered kind of everything. We kind of just talked about everything and anything. Just kind of got the feelings out. We didn't all agree on everything, which is normal because we're all different people. But ultimately, I hope that at least it felt good to talk to other people in the chat and to send your chats in. I got to as many people as I could. And I really appreciate the super chats that came in from Takun. I don't think I read this one. Arteta will answer for your crimes one day. And also from Mr. Holiday. So I appreciate that. But yeah, we'll talk after the Spurs game. It can either get better or worse. I don't know. But yeah, let's talk after that, and I'll see you guys then. Bye, guys.